Okay, well, my trusty clock says 6 o'clock, so I will call this meeting to order. And first order of business, I will read a electronic meeting protocol. So just want everyone to know that this meeting is live, but it is being recorded. So anyone who speaks, their personal information, included image, voice, name, opinions, any other personal information disclosed by you during the meeting is collected by the City of Roslyn under the Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy Act for the purpose of your participation in the public input. If you have any questions about the collection of your personal data, please contact dco@roslyn.ca. If you do not wish your personal information to be collected, please do not join the live council meeting. And then if we have anybody in the public who wants to speak to us in public input, you can use your raise hand button and I will call on you. We do allow 2 minutes for public input. And with that, we will see if there is anyone in public input who wants to speak with us. Let's see, we have some people. Okay, so I see Laura has her hand up. Laura, you can speak. Laura, speaking is permitted. We're having a little technical trouble there, maybe. Okay, Laura, can you try speaking? On our end, it looks like you should be able to. Now your mute sign is on again. Let me see if anybody else wants to speak, and we'll come back to you. Or let's give you one more chance. Laura, are you there? We're having some trouble. Let me just see if there's anybody else of our attendees who would like to speak. You could put up your hand if you want to speak in public input. Okay, if you're a delegation, you'll be coming up soon, so it's anyone else. Laura, I don't know why we can't hear you, and neither does our tech support there, so I don't know what to tell you. Do you want to try and send maybe an email to Rachel at the city, and she could, or Rachel, can she go in the chat? Let me see here.
She should be able to go into the chat and type a response in there.
Okay, Laura, why don't you try that? I'm sorry, and if we get if your sound comes through, on our end, it looks like you can speak, but we're not sure why you can't on your end. So type us a message and we'll pay attention to it. I was going to move the tennis contract up forward on the agenda if that's what you're here to speak to us about. So maybe. Okay, is there anyone else who wishes to speak in public input? Okay. And Laura, if you do come in or can type us a message, we will take your message when we get it, but we're going to move on. So I was going to say with the agenda, we're going to delete item 9A in correspondence, the request from the Museum and Discovery Center, as they are canceling Canada Day celebrations out of respect for the Truth and Reconciliation process with First Nations. I will note this is National Indigenous Peoples Day today, and I'd like us to take just a moment to reflect on all the truth and reconciliation work that is yet still to be done. This day has been recognized for, I think it's something like 25 years, and the work is nowhere nearly done. So we can all think about that a little bit. And then let's see, Laura, I'm not sure if you're here yet. Not yet. Okay, the other thing I'd like to do is move 8A, the tennis contract, and 8D, the Thompson project, up to 6A and B. So those will move forward on the agenda. So with those amendments, can I get a mover and a seconder for the agenda? Okay, Andy moves it and Dirk seconds. All in favor of the agenda as presented? Excellent. Okay, now first up, we have 2 delegations tonight. First one is Bear Smart Community Program, And Mike Badry, we are happy to have you join us and give us your wisdom.
Thanks very much. You can hear me okay?
Yeah, we can hear you great.
All right, then I will try this sharing the screen and I'll throw my presentation up there.
Great.
Do you guys see the Bear Smart Community Program slide?
Sorry, yes, we do.
Okay,
I muted
excellent.
myself.
Now I'll throw it over here so I can look at you while I'm speaking to it. Okay, thanks very much, everybody. I appreciate the invitation to come and speak about this. I'm Mike Badry. I'm the Human Wildlife Conflict Manager with the Ministry of Environment. So I work on lots of wildlife conflict issues, but the main one is certainly bears in communities, and we'll talk a bit about why there. But deal with agriculture conflicts and other things like deer and everything down to raccoons. But I wanted to talk to you today about an initiative that we have that we think is really important, and that's Bear Smart Communities. So just a bit of a snapshot of the kind of numbers we're talking about. Every year, we'll get up to 30,000 calls to our call center dealing with human wildlife conflict issues. And of those 30,000 calls, you can see the vast majority deal with bears. 18,000 of them are bear calls every year. And every year, we're hazing a number of bears, we're translocating a number of bears, but by and large, those bears are being destroyed due to conflict. And the Bear Smart Communities program has been sort of devised to try and deal with that issue. And that issue is mostly garbage, right? Garbage is always the #1 attractant. And what happens when bears get attracted to garbage and they get access to garbage, they come with what we call food conditioned. They make an association between people and a really valuable source of food. And once that happens, once they've made that connection that people equal a food source, it becomes very, very difficult to manage those bears in any other way than destruction. They're highly motivated to get access to food, and there's very little you can do to stop them once they learn that. And of course, once you've got a large carnivore coming into communities, accessing food, there's that inherent public safety risk and property damage. Just a little snapshot of what I'm talking about. Of all the calls that we get, those 18,000 calls where an attractant is noted, garbage is 58% of that call, of those calls. And that this pattern follows in just about every community. Garbage is the #1 attractant, followed by fruit. Fruit trees is #2 in this province. So the Bear Smart Community Program, the idea behind it is that it's a proactive conflict reduction program. Instead of that reactive thing where, the bear's already gotten access to food, the COs come in, try to deal with it. We need to stop the conflict happening at the root cause. And that's that access to those food sources. And that's what the Bear Smart Community Program really focuses on. It's a community-led project. So the community has to want to do it and has to take the initiative, because it's quite onerous to go through the Bear Smart program and complete all of the criteria, but it's completely voluntary on the part of the community. And we're looking for those communities that are really interested in being involved. And the program recognizes that each of these communities is unique. So what's going on in the community and how it might get resolved is going to be unique to that particular community. They can learn a lot from what other communities are doing, but what they do may be different. And as long as it meets the criteria, as long as it resolves the issue, then it meets the standard of the Bear Smart Community Program. And the benefits, of being Bear Smart, well, we really try to promote this idea that because you're stopping, you're really reducing these large carnivores being in your community, accessing food, you're improving public safety, you're reducing the property damage that occurs due to this conflict, and fewer bears are going to be killed due to conflict. Those are really the 3 primary benefits that we try to really promote around Bear Smart. There's others, we talk of every Bear Smart community gets a $3,000 grant that they can use in any way they really see fit to promote the community as Bear Smart, to further the Bear Smart program initiatives that they've got going on. And we hope in those Bear Smart communities, because we have bears maybe coming to town that aren't becoming food conditioned because they're not getting that ready access to food, there's going to be other options on how to deal with them other than destruction. you know, the hazing techniques or kind of the non-lethal techniques become much more effective if those bears aren't food conditioned. So just quickly, I'm going to go through the criteria. There are 6 of them, and I'll go through each one in just a little bit of detail. The first one is a bear hazard assessment. And this is really just a mapping exercise where you take a look at your community and the data that we've got through the call center, and we've got some ability to survey residents to find out what's going on, things like that. But it really identifies what the issues are. You know, where in the community are conflicts occurring? What are the attractants that are causing the conflict? Where might there be some areas where we've got a particular concern? Maybe it's schoolyards, playgrounds, things like that. The bear hazard assessment will really focus on those and create sort of that idea of what's going on in your community, and give you that basic outline of those issues. And that bear hazard assessment then gets used to create the bear conflict management plan. A lot of communities will do these simultaneously, and they'll come out with a hazard assessment / management plan. But really, the management plan is what is going to address the hazards that you identified in the initial step. So if, you know, where and how garbage is an issue, it's going to identify what kind of options will work for that community in order to mitigate those risks. And this is a really important, you know, when it comes to that uniqueness, it's important that the community is really involved in this step, because the options they're going to be put forward in this management plan, you know, have to be feasible for the community. They have to be something the community can afford, something the community can complete. So those are the sorts of things you'll want to see in this. And it really, it'll look like a bit of a work plan of the things that the community needs to accomplish in order to meet those risks that were identified in the hazard assessment. Now, the third criteria is that you take those things that I got identified in the management plan that you're going to do, and you actually take that wording and you incorporate it into the official community planning documents. And the reason this is important is because Bear Smart is a real commitment, and it's a long-term one. So we just want to make sure that the community is really bought in, and that the things that they're planning to do, they've done, or they plan to do, that they're committing to do, are sort of are going to be encompassed in those official plans. And also that way, you know, if mayor and council change or staff change, they'll see that this is something that the community does. It's their way of doing business, that they're bought into this, and it becomes that sort of long-term you know, focus of the community. Implementing an education program is a key component. And you guys have the WildSafe program that's being delivered there, and that certainly meets the standard of education and outreach. Other communities may have their own programs that they deliver themselves, and that's okay. WildSafe is the standard, though. So as long as they meet the same messaging and they use the same sort of techniques that WildSafe uses, then you meet the criteria for implementing an education program that really is, you know, really focuses on all aspects of the issue. It tries to get to young people, to new people, you know, new residents that move into town. Lots of communities have issues with, you know, difficulty with rental properties or holiday properties. Those sorts of things can be challenging. The education outreach program is going to target all of those. And because, as we talked about, garbage is the #1 attractant all the time, we have a criteria that is, you need to have a bear-resistant waste management system. And again, how that gets done is different in all different communities. So some communities that are smaller, you know, it's not as onerous, and others that are larger, it can be. You know, if you're looking at replacing dumpsters or individual residential garbage bins. But some of the things that have been done in other communities, you know, some communities like a Canmore have gone to residential dumpsters where they've got them located throughout the community and are used you know, by blocks or other larger areas where households take their garbage to a residential bear-proof dumpster. Some of our communities have bear-resistant transfer stations that are electric fenced. That can be an option. And again, oftentimes it's either contract companies or the individual residents themselves that take their garbage to these transfer stations. There could be just a retention of curbside collection or a discontinuation of curbside collection. But as long as that collection is bear resistant, you might use bear resistant bins. You might have bylaws that just talk about residents have to keep their garbage inaccessible to bears until the morning of pickup. Those have all worked in different communities, depending on the circumstances, depending on the available infrastructure and the resources available. And of course, disposal at a landfill that's going to be electric fence and inaccessible to wildlife. All different options, sort of, and there's probably others that are going on. I just want to sort of illustrate that there are those kinds of options that the community can look at. And then the sixth criteria is Bear Smart bylaws, which when we first developed this, we thought might not be necessary if all the other criteria are successfully met, but really it appears that it is. It's always important to have that stick. No matter how good everybody's being, there are always going to be people that don't want to comply. And some Bear Smart bylaws and a compliance strategy to actually enforce those bylaws is the last criteria for Bear Smart. And again, we have lots of really good examples now. Lots of communities have developed bylaws and implemented bylaws. So, those kinds of things that we can share with communities that are looking to do this to sort of see what might fit for that community in particular and what might work for them. So those are the 6 criteria that if you complete, and again, it's not easy, it's pretty onerous on the part of the community, but you'll be assessed for Bear Smart status. Now, we've been seeing some success with our program. We've been working on sort of the whole awareness part of it for a long time. And over the last 20 years, provincially, we've seen a fairly positive sort of decline in the number of bears destroyed. This has leveled off somewhat. I think we've kind of plateaued a bit provincially, but this is all the bears, throughout the province and all the communities. Black bear destructions due to conflict have come down. Grizzly bears have remained relatively flat. We have way fewer grizzly bear conflicts. Black bear are by far the majority that we get. But if you also sort of look at since 2012, just the number of calls that we get within BC provincially, again, we see in non-Bear Smart communities, we get a lot higher number of calls around bear conflict than we see in Bear Smart communities. And this has been done on a logarithmic scale. There's been some stats done by people a lot smarter than me to try to deal with the difference in per capita sort of issues in communities and that. But when we see this, it comes out as a very strong indication that we're seeing fewer conflicts in those communities that are Bear Smart. And just another way of looking at it, one of the COs that was working on a project took the data that we have in our call center database and looked at different 5-year periods and showed that when you compare 5 years in the previous 5 years to the last 5 years, on average in Bear Smart communities, in the green here, there's an 18% reduction on average in the number of calls that we get to the call center. Whereas in the rest of the province, it's an 11% increase that we've seen over the last 5 years. And similarly for bears killed in Bear Smart communities, there's 19% fewer bears killed in Bear Smart communities compared to a 9% increase in bears in non-Bear Smart communities. So again, we're seeing, it's kind of rough data, but we're seeing what we hope to be relatively positive signs that Bear Smart is working. It's not probably being delivered at a large enough scale yet to show those provincial numbers, but certainly within those communities itself, it seems to be working. And I cannot, say enough about the communities that have gone through the process and have successfully competed Bear Smart. We've got 10 right now, including Castlegar, which was our latest Bear Smart community. And we've got a bunch in the pipeline that are trying to pursue Bear Smart, and we're supporting them in that. And really hopefully that Rosalind will join us in that. So that was the presentation, and I'd be happy to take any questions or any comments that people have.
I'm going to call on Chris first.
Thanks, Mike. Great presentation. My question is, we're a wild safe community recognized. Where would you see us as far as communities go as a Bear Smart community? Would you, do you know Rosalind a little bit, I'm sure, and where do you see us?
As far as things that you've already accomplished?
And yeah, well, things that we already accomplished, and then also, bear confrontations this year are off the rails. It's kind of crazy.
Oh, as far as bear conflict, sort of where, yeah, well, that I can say Castlegar, when I first started this, job over 10 years ago, well over 10 years ago now, Castlegar was one of our highest bear conflict communities. It was that them and Prince George were every year super high when it came to black bear conflicts. But we, you know, and with the initiatives that Castlegar's taken over a fairly long period of time, they have been very successful in bringing that number down, and they are nowhere near the level of bear conflict that they've had in the past. So even though Roslyn, I'm sure, has its challenges, like many of our communities do, you know, I have every belief that following the similar sorts of initiatives to pursue Bear Smart would have similar sorts of success.
Andy.
Thanks, Mike. Really appreciate this. I think Roslyn's talked about, tightening our regulations, our bylaws. Curbside pickup is a day of, after, not before 7 o'clock in the morning. A number of regulations that we've tried to make an effort to tighten within the community to reduce conflicts. But we're still having, and as pointed out by Chris, it seems to be almost an epidemic this spring, with the number of bears that have come into the community and that are around, causing all kinds of problems. I'm wondering, do we is the process you make that intention, and then obviously consultants that work are with your organization or independent come into the community?
Yeah.
And is it something they're invited, obviously, by council and the citizens to come in, and it's a 1-year process, or the timing? Just kind of interested to know what's involved.
And it really depends on the issues and sort of how quickly the community can pursue some of these things. We've had it, especially early on in the program. A lot of communities would hire bear biologists to do very thorough bear hazard assessments and management plans, a bit more than really is required under the Bear Smart program, which is just really focusing again on that attractant issue for the most part. The Wild Safe program has actually gotten very proficient at developing bear hazard assessments and supporting really all aspects of whatever the community wants to pursue. So we've been able to streamline that process quite a bit more. So a bear hazard assessment could happen, well within a year, and fairly reasonable cost, a few $1,000s in some cases, in order to develop the bear hazard assessment. And it's when you develop the management plan where you're really starting to say, this is how we're going to mitigate these issues. And part of that's going to be, identifying what the costs are going to be and whether or not the community, it's feasible for the community. So again, it really depends on that unique circumstances within each community, what those costs are going to be.
I know that one of the concerns too is that we're hoping to initiate a curbside organics pickup, which obviously, kitchen waste mostly, and that is raising some alarm bells for some citizens in the community. And how are we going to manage, for all the advantages of trying to reduce our costs for landfill, are we just adding to, exponentially to a problem
I can tell you on that particular issue, talking to other people in waste management that have made that, been our communities that have been involved in that change, because it's very common now. They actually found in some cases it was easier to manage because you're taking out those really strong attractants and you're dealing with them separately instead of having them included in your mixed garbage. And people seem to kind of twig on the idea that these are strong attractants for all kinds of wildlife, not just bears, but raccoons and skunks, and we'll get into that. And they may manage it more appropriately because of that, meaning keeping it in some kind of inaccessible area, whether it's some kind of outbuilding or bear resistant bin prior to pickup, or not taking it out until the morning of pickup. And some communities have looked at where they've got the issue. Certain communities, the issue will be along the outskirts, most often actually along green areas where bears can sort of stage, and then they'll come out and access these attractants. So maybe that's where you do your earliest morning pickup. You're not allowed to have it out, until the morning, and those are the first ones to get picked up. So, there's all kinds of strategies, again, based on what those hazards are, what your issues are, that might be effective for that community.
Thank you. Thanks. Appreciate it.
Council, any other questions? Anybody? I've got a couple, Mike. Thanks so much for this presentation. We did get partway down the Bear Smart community path a number of years ago. I don't think we completed our hazard and management plan. We may have completed the hazard, but not the management. So I think we've got a good base to build on for sure. And in our bylaw, for our garbage bylaw, you know, we don't allow people to put their garbage out till the morning of. We require a wildlife resistant can, which is not bear proof. And so, but I think, I don't know, I mean, maybe staff could chime in, but I think we've had a lot less garbage issues with bears actually getting into garbage. They get into other stuff that people have, you know, these other attractants for sure. But it is interesting, but I'm curious, do you know of any grants that would help us get actual bear proof containers for our citizens? Is there any kind of funding for that?
I don't know of any, and that is a difficult one because they can be costly. I know of some communities that have sort of purchased them over time, and they've got a plan to make sure every resident has them over a period of time. Again, targeting the highest risk areas first, things like that. Yeah. But I can certainly tell you, you know, that idea that bears, you know, once you've actually managed your garbage appropriately, yes, the bears will teach you where the next attractant is. They're really good at finding the next issue that you need to deal with, which is why it's such a big commitment. And even bear resistant bins, you know, if given enough time with a bear resistant bin, they'll figure them out. That's why we don't call them bear proof, because they're so good at it. So, you know, one of the things, even for communities that have bear resistant bins, they have bylaws that say those bins have to be kept inaccessible, because if that bear can just grab it and drag it away and have hours and hours to work on it, they'll figure out how to get into it.
Yeah, that's great. Well, thank you. This is wonderful to have you come. We had heard some earlier presentations from Bear Aware and WildSafe, and we wanted you to come and talk to us about this, because it does seem like a very good program, and council will talk about it, but certainly the time is right, you know, for us to be looking at this more seriously. So any other questions, council? Okay, looks like no, and thank you very much. So now we're going on to our next delegation of the night, which is WildSafe. And Cheyenne, I think you are, oh, there you are. Okay, welcome.
Hello, and thank you for including me in your council meeting. My name is Cheyenne. I'm the new representative for Rossland and Trails WildSafe BC program. And yeah, I'm here to basically reiterate in a more casual way what Mike is saying about the importance of a Bear Smart community. And I'd love to be able to support that in any way I can. WildSafe BC is a provincially run program that provides education, outreach, and support to communities at a community level to avoid and mitigate wildlife-human conflict. My goal is to provide education and support to the youth and adults of Rossland and Trail to help them better manage their waste, handle conflict and interactions with wildlife in a safe manner. Our tagline is to keep wildlife wild and communities safe. And that is what I am devoted to doing. And I look forward to doing so in your community. I have a few specific goals. Specifically with Rossland, my main goal right now is to foster a sense of partnership and trust and communication between the Conservation Officer Service and the community of Rossland. I find there's not a lot of trust generally that the conservation officers are there to help and that they want the best possible outcome, and they assume that all bears that are reported will be destroyed. And that is not the case. We are looking to avoid the destruction of wildlife in all cases as much as possible. And so I'm doing a lot of door-to-door. I'm banging on people's doors and telling them that using the RAP line does not mean that their bears will be shot in their neighborhoods, and that it will add to the data that we have available. And if we have accurate data on wildlife interactions, we can target and respond in a more accurate manner. Having accurate data allows us to make the best possible choices when we're accurately informed. I'm looking to specifically decrease bear conflicts. I understand there's a lot of damage happening in Rossland right now due to bears. They're actually literally breaking into houses and cars and sheds. And so clearly what's happened here is that bears have learned that opening doors results in a food reward. And that is a very dangerous position for a community to be in, and one that I'm very concerned about. So my main drum that I'm beating this year is for all communities in Rossland and in Trail to lock their doors. It's not a common thing for a small community to need to lock their doors, and that's wonderful. But I think that it's a best practice that we should be adopting, and a message that needs to be reiterated in every possible way and scenario. If people lock their doors and bears can't access things, they won't learn that this is something that can possibly benefit them. Because once they learn and once they teach their cubs, it's very difficult to ever get them to unlearn that. And food conditioned bears are a danger to our community. So we need to get on top of that. So that's a big goal, and that's a very big message that I'm delivering to Rossland this year. My other education and outreach for Rossland this year includes bear spray demonstrations and workshops where I can inform people about the best ways to use and dispose of bear spray. And I'm also delivering the Wild Safe Ranger program to various age groups and youth groups across Rossland and Trail. I've delivered it already to a group of grade 7s at RSS. And over the summer, there are a number of summer camps that will be hearing the program. I think it's a very valuable thing for our youth to be educated in the best possible practices at the earliest possible age. They bring that home to their families and help encourage the best practices and adherence to those. So yeah, those are my basic goals for Rossland this year, and you'll be seeing me marching around and talking. I'm also going to be talking to the local businesses about our business pledge, which will involve businesses in the continuing community goals of reducing wildlife attractants, managing our waste, and avoiding attracting animals. I already have Clancy's on board as a business pledge signee, and I'm hoping to get more by the end of the year. And you'll also see me doing some presentations outside of Ferraro Foods. I hope. I haven't quite got permission yet, but we're working on that. Getting business owners to return phone calls and all of those things. So yeah, you'll see me doing presentations, doing door to door, doing my best to provide the tools necessary for people to keep wildlife wild and communities safe.
That's great. Anyone have any questions for Cheyenne? Dirk.
Not so much a question, I suppose, but sort of to affirm a couple of things that Cheyenne said. I had, I don't remember which day it was last week, and the rest of council will find this somewhat ironic, I suppose, but my chickens got attacked by a bear on, not sure which day it was. Anyways, made it into the chicken coop by very simply and easily opening the door. I have since changed the doorknob. We found the bear, startled it mid-consumption of a chicken. It went straight 7 feet through the top mesh of the chicken coop, straight up a tree. I've since modified the chicken coop. I have also ordered an electric fence as much as I didn't want one. So it is coming on, I believe, Wednesday. But I did call the CO because we had the tree very angry or the bear very angry and treed, and the CO did not want to come, wanted us to let the bear down and let it go away. I was concerned, obviously, that it was now conditioned because of my chickens. It did come back in the afternoon. My neighbor called and I came around and shooed it away. It was not, either didn't attempt or was not able to get in. There is still one extremely traumatized chicken in there that has not come out. And yeah, so council, I will be getting an electric fence. And I don't know if there's any interest in coming around to look at the coop to make sure that I've got it good enough for, you know, anti-bear attacks. But yeah, it was it was disconcerting and rather shocking to have that.
That does sound like a dramatic encounter. I'm so sorry your chickens were injured.
Well, one doesn't know anymore and the other one is, but it was 1 in the afternoon. It wasn't an evening or early morning, midday, lots of construction going on at the house. It was something else. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, I've heard frequently that bears in Roslyn don't care what time of day it is and are pretty unfazed by just generally seeing people. Yes, we do say that best practices for chickens, if you're going to keep them, is to provide an electric fence and completely restrict any access, because that is best practice according to WildSafe BC. If you'd like, I'm more than happy to come up and check out your chicken coop and see if there's anything we can do to reinforce it, or to find a new lock for it, or just to generally see that your yard and your facility is bear resistant and WildSafe approved. I'm more than happy to do that if you'd like. That's totally
Yeah.
something within my scope. I'm available later in the week. You can message me, or I think my email address might be available on the little
We can-
display there. Then
We can
by
get a
all
hold of
means,
you.
just
We
email
can
me
get-
and we can arrange a time.
Oh,
Mhm.
fine.
So-
And I'm happy to have it used as an example of what to change. I did make some changes. I won't go into it now, but hopefully they are sufficient for the
That
remaining.
sounds like a great chance for, and a great opportunity for education. I would take some pictures and make use of them in my social media. That would be great.
Yep, I
So
will.
Cheyenne, are you trained in the proper execution of electric fencing? Is that part of your training? Because some people
ma'am.
do it and they do it wrong, right? So which,
I am not personally, no,
Okay.
but I do have access to the contacts that are provincially recognized as being suitable for grizzly bear deterrence.
okay.
And so from there, I can probably cobble together some resources and we can figure it out.
Yeah, okay, because we do have a couple of people in town who are actually quite experienced. Andrew Bennett just did a e-fence workshop that was really helpful. You might want to talk to him too, Dirk. And as long as we're doing it, let's do it right. Chris, did you have your hand up? Did I see your hand up? You're muted.
Yeah, I have my hand up. Sorry, and it was more of a comment than anything. A bear broke into the neighbor's house across the street and lived there for about a day and a half for the most part. So now the whole neighborhood is distraught by this bear. Is there, we don't want to call the CO for a number of reasons. So if you work more with the community in helping them understand what calling the CO means, that would be really helpful, I think. Because there are a lot of people that love the bears, but they're afraid to call because they know the bear's going to be destroyed.
Mm-hmm. And it's a tricky line for me to walk, because it's true that COs do destroy bears. I don't want to lie about it, but it's also their last line. It's not something a CO wants to do. It's something that haunts them, I think. And it's not something that anybody wants in their community or from the COs at all. But absolutely, I see your point of not wanting to contact them and not wanting to see those bears destroyed, but also definitely not wanting them to break into homes. It's a fine line and there's a balance, but I do think that reporting is better than not, so that we can make the most informed decisions and handle any trouble that comes along before it comes along. If that makes sense, it's being proactive again about bear conflict.
Okay, Andy and then Terry.
I think that that's a good point, Chris, and Shay, thank you for that answer. I'd heard recently that COs are frustrated that the Roslyn residents generally aren't calling them, and they feel that we're actually exacerbating the problem because we're not calling when there's incidents, and the bears are getting bolder and more aggressive and smarter. So that, when they are getting finally called, it's a pretty critical situation. You got a bear in someone's home, and there's been people in the home. Yeah, you're asking for a real potential problem. So that communication back to our citizens, I think, is highly valuable. And I think that to understand the role of the conservation officer. And yeah, when you get a bear habituated to chickens or to breaking into homes, that situation isn't going to get better with that bear. So we really do need to identify the issue and try and be more preventative instead of reactive, because yeah, people are going to get hurt. I can see that potential. And all we need is one incident like that, and wow, it'll be a different scenario in the community.
Okay,
Very
we
true, Andy,
certainly
thanks.
we certainly do need to keep it in perspective, though, because yes, there's lots of incidents with bears in town, but there hasn't been an actual injury. I think the numbers on black bears actually harming people is pretty low everywhere. So I don't want to start a panic here with people. Terry and then Chris.
Yeah, that was exactly my lead into my question, which is I noted on Mike's presentation that safety was the #1 priority, and that's pretty easy to rattle off. But I guess I was just looking for some color around the safety piece. You know, where does that actually sit? Because I'm guessing that people phone or don't phone because of the nuisance of the bear. And the worry that it'll get destroyed. But if you could expand on the safety piece, I'd be interested in hearing about that.
The safety of communities in preventing bear conflict, or I'm not quite sure I understand the question.
The number, we would all hear about examples where bears and people get tangled up with each other to the point where a human gets injured. I don't hear that very often. So, and yet safety is touted. Are you talking, when you talk about safety, or when Mike was talking about safety, is he talking about the potential for bears to attack people?
Yes. Yes, that is definitely a concern, particularly for food conditioned and human conditioned bears. A bear that's not afraid of people is a very dangerous wild animal. They are massive, they are powerful, they have huge claws and strong teeth, and they are definitely a safety risk, and to people's pets and to people's property. All of those things then involve safety to people as well, because if somebody's dog is being mauled, then a person is going to try and intervene, and that's also a huge danger. Also, if bears cause if bears cause damage to somebody's railing, that's a safety hazard as well. Like it's a whole spectrum of dangers that we have to mitigate. And true, bears do not generally hurt people, and we are definitely focused on that and aware of the fact that bears are generally not going to predate on people. They're not going to be looking to maul people, but it's also a real concern and worth paying attention to, I think.
Most of what has happened locally is property damage. It is not injury to pets or people, just so we keep it in perspective. We have to take care of this. We have to get rid of the attractants, because yes, everything Shanna is saying is true, but we also have to be realistic. And we've had cars ripped up, you know, and sheds and doors and that kind of thing. But honestly, you know, let's get our community in line and not create panic about, you know, about bears. Yes, there's a risk, but there's also perspective. Chris, I think you had your hand up again, did you not?
Thanks, Kathy. Yeah.
Yeah.
Shan and Mike as well, if Mike's still here. Every week we do a local market in the courtyards beside the chocolate shop, and I'd be happy if you would reach out to Trish at the chocolate shop and set up in the courtyard during one of those events, and bring Mike along and help educate our community.
Wonderful. I've been actually looking for an opportunity and a place to go and set up with the COS and do some community outreach. There was no farmers market this year, so that was sort of my in, and I was thinking I'd have to go to the Ferraro Foods parking lot and just like hang out there. But if there's a market weekly, by all means, I would love you to email me details for that. For
sure, we're just starting that now, and Trish at the chocolate shop here, the Mountain Nugget Chocolates, is hosting it. So by all means, reach out to her, please. And I'd love to see a CO there, so people actually can see a CO and talk to them. Other than calling them and having them come.
Yeah. A real live CO, CO that doesn't bite. Be great. The other thing that we have a challenge in town is we've had a lot of new residents move in. Like we've got a lot of people who've been, Bear Smart, and then Wildlife BC has been in our community for a long time, but we've had a lot of people move in just recently. So I think there's a real opportunity for, getting the word out there. We put out a council newsletter once a month, and we can put information in that, but honestly, it takes your face in front of people, and that I think really gets the message in there, and your work with the kids. I think that's a really great thing too. So, okay, council, any other questions for Cheyenne? It's so nice to meet you. It's very nice to have you here. Thank you.
Thank you
And
so
to
much
Mike
for
too,
having me.
coming.
I appreciate your time very much.
It's great. All right. Thanks so much.
Okay. Bye for now.
Bye-bye. Okay, guys, we have some minutes to adopt. So first up are minutes from the public hearing on May 3rd. Can I have a mover and a seconder? Mover and a seconder. Janice and Chris, any comments on these minutes? All in favor? Okay. And minutes from the Heritage Commission meeting on May 31st. Can I have a mover and a seconder? Mover and a seconder. Dirk and Janice. Oh, I see we're moving a little slow tonight, guys. Okay, any comments on these? I had just a couple myself, but anybody? Okay. I think the first page might have been missing in our package, but I'm hoping it didn't have anything significant. I forgot to ask staff about it. I love the Google Analytics for the web traffic. That's really good to target their audience. And they made a comment about overlapping with the museum as if it's a bad thing, but getting the word out through various channels is like a basic tenet of advertising. You don't know 50% advertising is wasted. You just don't know which 50%. So I think it's not a bad thing to have overlap there. I wouldn't say that. And then I had an idea about the bench at the cemetery. Roslyn Refractory is doing recycled local plastics, and one of the things that they can make is a bench. So I don't know if that would be of interest, but I'm just throwing that out there. And also they talk about the need for consistent territory acknowledgement, and we're also motivated, but of course accuracy is more important than speed. So they wanted something done in sort of as soon as possible. We can't really commit to a timeline, but in the near term is aspirational goal, and we're all working on it. So that's great. Okay, without those comments, I'll call the question. All in favor of adopting the minutes of the Heritage Commission? Okay. And then we've got minutes from our regular meeting on June 7th for adoption. Terry moves it. Look at him, he's quick. And Andy seconds. Any comments there? All in favor? Okay. And then we have our minutes from the public hearing on June 7th, and we need those to be adopted as well. A mover. Andy and Dirk, any comments? All in favor? Okay. Now we're going to jump to what was 8A, and that's the tennis society's agreement. So if you will find 8A, that's on page 119 of your packet. And the staff recommendation is that we approve the second draft for the Tennis Society Facility Use Agreement. Do we have a mover? Janice moves it, and a seconder. Terry seconds it. Any discussion? Janice, nothing?
No, I know it's taken a while for staff and the tennis club to get together and put this together, and I appreciate everybody's persistence, and I'm glad to see that they've come to agree.
Yeah. Okay. And Terry? No, you're good. Oh, you're muted.
Yeah. No. As before. Yeah, it's been a long one, but looks like they're getting together, so I think it's great.
Okay, I'd just like to see if Laura wanted to say something about this, and if it's possible for her to come in, because I'm thinking that's what she was here for. Laura, are you there? Still muted. Unmuted, muted. That's not really working. I'm sorry. Let's see if anybody else has comments. Stuart, you had your hand up there for a minute.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask staff. I noticed some of the different responsibilities have moved around a bit, and I just wanted to know what we're taking on that we weren't before.
So the actual agreement doesn't outline any changes to where that responsibility lies. The language was adjusted slightly to make everybody in the Tennis Society comfortable. as our new formats for agreements are a little bit more official than what they had been used to seeing in the past, but it doesn't change the responsibility. The only big thing that's changed from our last draft is that the cancel, or how did that be worded in the past? There's basically that timeline on cancellation is instead of having that immediate cancellation, it's with notice, which is in line with what we have with our other facilities anyhow.
Okay, great. And now let's try Laura again, because she was trying to get in at public input there. She may be able to talk this time. Laura? On my screen, it looks like you're still muted. Oh, I'm so sorry. All right, I'm going to go to Terry.
This is for Christy, and I expect this is a totally different conversation, but I've seen and heard actually on the street quite a bit of buzz about pickleball as the next great thing, and I just wanted to understand the connection between our existing tennis society and courts there and the potential for pickleball.
Mm-hmm. You guys will actually be hearing from a pickleball group shortly. So I had a number of specifically women approaching me in the community, and they were quite right in pointing out that for their age demographic, all they had was walking. So we actually went and met and visited on location at the courts up at Red. And we are, for the short-term solution, we already have 2 nets on hand, and it's harder than you'd imagine to get a painter on deck to paint some sideways courts, but we can temporarily fit 2 sideways pickleball courts with nets that we'll have up this season for them up there. And then that's the short term. They're going to come speak to you guys as a delegation, not requesting a motion as far as I know, but just for information to keep you in the loop on how important that sport is to their demographic and how much use it's getting and where they're traveling to now, because they would very much like a better in-town walkable long-term solution to be looked at when we're doing the master plan process.
That's
Thanks,
great.
Christy.
That's a nice update.
Thanks, Christy. I'm sorry. Oh,
Yeah,
Kathy,
go
I was
ahead.
just.
Sorry.
And
Go
is there any crossover with the existing courts, or it would be simply like the tennis club will be or the tennis courts will be tennis and pickleball would be something else?
Yeah, so far, no interest on having it cross over. It sounds like there was a little bit of conflict there maybe historically in the past. And then when I spoke with those women about going back and approaching the Tennis Society about that overlap, there had been nothing specific that had happened recently that made them feel unwelcome or anything. But when we found that other solution up at Red in the short term, they preferred that.
Yeah, good. Okay, I see Laura's still there. Let me see in the chat if we have anything still muted. Oh, I don't know what to say, Laura. We can't seem to hear you. So if you have a way to unmute yourself, because you're unmuted on our end, but it's not looking like it's going to work. So, okay, so my only question, and I think this has pretty much already been answered, Christy, but this draft, this number 2 draft has been agreed to by the society as well. They're comfortable with the language as it now stands.
All the changes that you see in there were suggested by the society.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Okay, I'm going to call the question, and I hope we're not missing a gem from Laura on this, but I'm going to call the question on approving this agreement. All in favor? Okay, all right, good, thanks. Okay, our next thing, we are now moving up to the 8, let's see, was it 8D? 8D. Okay, so this is request for council decision regarding parcel B on Thompson Avenue, the Cook School site, the zoning amendment. So council request is that we consider the application for zoning located off Thompson and direct staff how to proceed. This is going to be a bit of a discussion. We're going to have, I want to know what your considerations are, and then we'll come up with unless someone wants to start with a motion right now, we can discuss that motion, whichever way you want to go. So I'm going to throw it open to the field here. Who wants to start with their thoughts on this proposal?
I got thoughts, but no motion.
Okay, that's okay. Let's start with your thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, it seems one of the few large developable lots where we could actually diversify our housing stock in town. This is a potentially a legitimate proposal to achieve that. You know, it doesn't conform with all our OCP requirements, but you know, we know the site servicing is going to be very expensive to meet the regulatory requirements for fire flow and such. And you know, I don't think it's unrealistic that this sort of density and scale of project is necessary to actually have an economically viable project on this site. That said, you know, we know everybody in the neighborhood's not going to like it, and you know, I don't know how to square that circle where we say we want to diversify our housing stock, and yet nobody actually wants anything other than a single family home anywhere near where they live. I'm at a bit of a loss.
Okay, thanks. Dirk.
Yeah, I think, I mean, struggling with this one, I agree with Stu. You know, we want to diversify our housing stock, but I don't think we need to do it all in one building in the middle of a neighborhood. I think there are many interesting opportunities with the current zoning to build something that's profitable for the developer and interesting for the community and add some diversity. I think that this is just overwhelmingly ambitious and really pushes an awful lot of edges of envelopes that I am not comfortable with. And I think it'd be too much to ask of the community. A slightly bigger building is one thing, but something this large, that doesn't fit for me.
Okay, who's next? Janice.
Okay, I got notes. I agree. I mean, I would love to, I'm all on board with diversifying our housing. I think it's a great idea to have something for our seniors. I would note that the number in the report that was provided by the developer that we have 300 seniors over 60 is incorrect. We had 1,100 in 2016. So, but I think this is just, it's a bit too ambitious. It's too much for the site. It's too much for the neighborhood. It's too tall. All the visitor parking is on city property versus private property. There's a lot of things that it meets within the OCP, but you know, the services, the existing services are not up to snuff. Not really a great transition. Yeah, it's you know, it's got a huge parcel coverage. It's got twice as much floor area as normally in multifamily. So this is a really huge building to plop down in a primarily residential neighborhood with no transition. I would support it if the developer could make some adjustments, downsize it a bit, get it within the requirements that we're looking for. I think it would be very popular. And I do note that you know, the developer, when he has previously brought stuff to us, has been very honest about his what he's building. For instance, that he's building. Previously, he said right out loud that he's building luxury apartments. Although he says affordable housing here, we've heard that before from other developers. Affordable covers a wide range of house pricing or dwelling pricing, and I suspect that the developer isn't going to sell these at cost. So you know, they're not going to be inexpensive. Nothing is anymore, unfortunately. So you know, as proposed and as presented, I just can't. It's just too much for me to support right now. I would want to see it downscaled a bit.
Okay, thanks, Janice. Chris, I think you had your hand up, and then Andy.
Thanks, Kathy. Yeah, Janice, I echo that a little bit, quite a lot actually. You know, it's the intent for the development to be built with private funding to keep prices affordable doesn't necessarily fly with me. I know developers that don't like to do that. And you know, the question about, you know, propping it up against some of the other affordable housing that we're doing in the community. You know, I don't think that the prices will be as affordable as everybody thinks in this development. And there are just too many holes in this right now. And even reading the consultants' reports, they really don't have any idea without going way deeper into this, what we can do there. So I'm having a challenge with the support on this. I agree that we totally need the housing and a development like this, but to put it into a neighborhood like this without really making sure that we're following all the protocols and dotting the I's and crossing the T's, I think we're a little bit away from a nod on this.
Okay, thanks, Chris. Andy?
Yeah, I'm certainly seeing the pattern in our conversation here that it's too much for this particular neck of the woods. I struggle with the idea of marketability too. The 55 plus audience that I see that would be interested in this project is not likely locals, or not, certainly think that the majority of folks that would be interested would be newcomers again to the community. I see the parallels with the project he's got been approved for up in Iron Cold. An opportunity to take advantage of a hot real estate market right now to build something that is more density than the one at Iron Cold, somewhat smaller, but still, I don't think the idea, the marketability of seeing our local citizens, elders, senior citizens looking for new accommodation from their homes. I think that is happening. But I see a lot of people holding on to their homes well into their 70s and even 80s. And when they're wanting to make that move, they'll often not want to shovel snow anymore. And they'll probably want to head into lower elevations. So I don't see it being viable from that standpoint. And all the other issues that came up with the costs to service that lot, the impacts to the neighborhood. And the other issue that I continue to bring up is traffic. Bringing that kind of volume onto Thompson Avenue, we're already having problems with traffic volumes and speed limits. Just adds to issues that we already are experiencing. So to have that increase in population in that smaller, dense area doesn't make sense to me. I won't be supporting it.
All right, thanks, Andy. Terry?
Hi, thanks. Yeah, a bit of a repeat. I think that piece of property in town here is ideal for multifamily. So it's a great spot, but I think as others have stated, that this is way too big a mouthful for the traffic for that. So that's again a repeat of what other people have already said. And then I have a question, which is, the developer has targeted this at 55 and over and has stated that it'll put a covenant in there. But does council have any? That would have no bearing, I don't think, would it, on our a decision down the road if there was some rescaling? Is there some type of commitment that we would ask for or ensure around the 55? I think, like Andy, I'm going, is that kind of restriction on who would buy? That's the developer's purview to target an audience, but do we have anything to do with age groups? Stacy, is that something we have to consider?
We could, if it could be a zoning condition, and it can be a covenant on title that can't be removed without the city's permission. So yes, it could.
Okay.
I don't think it's a restriction. People over 55 are the ones with the money. He's not going to be selling it to young people.
Yeah,
I'm not saying he couldn't sell it to 55 and over. I was just curious about how that is made to happen or not.
To me, it's a hollow promise, because they're the only people who are going to want to buy it anyway.
well, I don't think we can presume who necessarily is going to buy it. When you see the house prices going on in Roslyn right now, there's a lot of people of all ages buying things that are eye-wateringly expensive. You know, I really wanted to support this project because I do believe we need seniors housing in town. I like the idea of local seniors having a place to move to when they want to downsize. And we have heard that for a number of years that they do. I know Andy says they're tired of shoveling snow. Well, they don't have to in a unit like this, right? It's, you know, so there's things about it that I really liked. Too many units, too big, you know, especially there's no transition in this neighborhood where we're doing on the MCON project. There's several large buildings. There's a school, there's a park, there's an arena. You know, it fits in better than here where it's all single family housing. The fact that it's a 40 unit apartment and then on top of that, another 3 4-plexes on the other lot was just, whoa, you know, we're getting way too over the top. And just a little history on it, you know, it had been zoned before. There was single family housing that was supposed to be there, and then it got zoned to, I think it was 24 units, six 4-plexes, right? And that got a lot of the community up in arms. I actually really liked that zoning. I thought that was good and appropriate and fit in the neighborhood. But when you think about what seniors want, what I liked about this development is that there was common space for people. It really was an apartment. There really wouldn't be any, you know, shoveling, but there'd be common area where they could gather and hold, you know, events and family parties and stuff. And I liked that. I just wanted it smaller, and I still want it smaller. I think, you know, I mean, some of the things that was supposed to be walkability, I disagree with staff on that a little bit. We have a lot of really active seniors in town. We put in a big wide sidewalk that comes down from downtown closer to that site. I think that's okay. I agree with Janice about the parking on the city alleyway there. That's a non-starter. And of course, the infrastructure stuff is a big deal. Now, again, they'd have to be paying for that, but it seems like from the reports that were included, you know, we certainly can't make a judgment on that, but yikes, you know, it just seems too much, you know. So I am like everyone else. I think we need to give some direction to staff, but I can't say I'm in favor of it as much as I wanted to be. Stuart.
The 24 unit zoning wasn't economic. It's our old pipes don't provide the servicing that site needs for that sort of development. And so the developer's got to pay for it, and the development has to pay for that servicing. If we say this isn't appropriate, do we want to, you know, is it up to the city to come and say, well, these are the, you know, we understand it's not going to work at that scale. What scale are we actually comfortable with? Then the developer can at least take some direction before this proposal or any future ones on any of these sites, you know, what are we actually comfortable with, rather than them putting all the time and effort and investment in bringing a proposal to us and then saying, oh no, we don't like that. You know, we do need to allow density on that site if we want to see something happen there.
Yes, we absolutely
and just saying
do.
no isn't going to contribute toward making that happen.
That's right. Well, one of the things that we were hoping for is that the developer would work with city staff. And one of the notices in the report was that, well, they sort of tried to work together, and the developer really wanted this proposal without sort of going through and working with staff on what could be. I mean, I'm not an engineer. I don't know. I mean, like I say, I like the 4-plex thing, and if that wasn't economically feasible because of all the infrastructure that was going to have to be put in, that's a different problem. But I think all we can do as council is turn this back to the developer and staff and say, you guys try and work something out that's gonna work. If the only thing that's going to work on this lot is a 40 unit apartment complex and 3 4-plexes, then we have a real problem, because I don't think that's going to be something that we're likely to approve. You know, I just think there's some big issues with it.
Can I ask Stacey a question?
Yeah,
Stacey?
of course you can.
Stacey, you know, you probably have some appreciation of the economics of trying to develop that site. You know, what scale, just absolute ballparking are we talking about that might be able to somehow achieve all our goals? Where are the limits of achieving all the, you know, the various OCP things we need to achieve? You know, is 24 that limit? Or is there wriggle room above that?
Yeah, how about an apartment building that's 30 units instead of,
Yeah, because I
different-
got no
you know,
idea.
whatever.
Yeah. If the developer was open to horse trading, where can we get to that actually meets our goals?
The question of the moment. That's the question of, I'd say I first started thinking about the other lot and perhaps having that as full green space with nothing on it. And then maybe 40 units might be palatable, but maybe in a bit of a different design building. Two separate buildings, perhaps on those lots, maybe, I mean, maybe between 30 and 40 might be possible. It depends on a lot, not just the number of units. It's what size are they? What is the
Right.
building look like? What is the parking? It's not, I don't know the magic number of density.
No, I don't expect you to know exactly. It just sounds to me that if the developer was prepared to work with the city, that there is options for moving beyond the current 24 to try and make it actually economic.
Yeah, we did. We had a lot of conversations and discussions, and this is where we came to what's coming to council now. Perhaps we can go back to the drawing board. I'm totally willing to do that. I'd like to see that lot developed too. Yeah.
I think it's safe to say that all of us agree that we need to diversify our housing stock. We want to see something on it. We don't want to see single family houses on that lot. We want to see some multifamily. I mean, tell me if I'm wrong, guys, but we want to see that. It's just, this is a step too far. So there has to be something a little less massive on that site that fits more in the neighborhood. Janice, you had your hand up.
Yeah, I was just going to say that I hope that the developer appreciates that Stacy brought this forward to us to discuss it before it went to any further processes where you know, he spent even more money and time on his same plan to have us say, well, no, that's just too much. So I actually don't mind having this discussion now so that so they can get back to the drawing board.
Yeah.
I'm ready to make a motion.
Okay, Stuart, make a motion.
That we direct staff to be creative and be open to discussing possibilities with the developer in the interest of getting a multi-unit development on that site that meets everybody's needs.
Okay, Andy seconds it.
Second it, and I also, no, it's okay. I'm good just as is.
Okay, any discussion on the motion? I think it's well put, Stuart. Dirk.
I do, but I don't think it's on staff to be creative to come up with something. I mean, there are rules as to what we see would fit on there, and the developer is the one that's making the money from building this. And if they want to make more money and build something bigger, then do it. If it's not feasible to build something in the middle range, maybe we have to build something smaller so we're not replacing all the infrastructure. I mean, we can't let our desire to have diversified housing shoehorn something in there that we really don't want. So I don't think it's fair to ask staff to be creative. I think the developer needs to be creative within the boundaries that the city has put forward.
I think the spirit of the motion was that staff would work with the developer. Maybe the creativity part is going to maybe will come out from everyone's contributions. I don't think that's a key. That's not a deal breaker, you know. But I think the point is to get staff and the developer to work together with the understanding that we are interested in diversifying the housing stock, multifamily housing. We want to see something on that lot, but we just can't do this. I think that might be fair. Oh, Terry, see your hand there.
Yeah, I would want to make sure that the developer, who I believe is sitting in on this conversation, understands
You're frozen.
where what you said, Kathy, that I hear the conversation that we're all encouraging us to work, but not in this form. So, and I'm kind of with Dirk on this. I think he needs to come back. But my problem, I guess, is that and this comes with Stu's comments, is how many times can we go back and forth? It'd be, I wonder if there's a way that we could pin down what would be acceptable and then have the developer go back and see if that pencils from his perspective.
Oh, I certainly don't feel I have the qualifications to do that. I don't know if Stacy does, but I don't think any of us could do that. Stacy, do you want to comment?
No, I can't come up with a magic number because it depends on so many things. But generally, always before bringing any kind of zoning application to council, I'm always working with the developer to come up with something that, in my opinion, obviously only in my opinion, is palatable. In this case, I also felt this was too much, but I recognize the challenges of the engineering for this side. I've had numerous discussions with WSP on it, and so I recognize it needs density. But I think there are ways, different buildings, different configurations, driveway access, there are ways to make it more palatable by building design a lot. And in this case, I just don't think that they met the criteria for that. And I always point developers to existing multifamily zones as a place to start. Start with what we have and work from there. So even the R3 zone, it doesn't have a specific density requirement, but it has lots of other setbacks, height requirements. Start with that and then work on a really good building design. To alleviate neighborhood concerns, look at those OCP criteria and work through them realistically and think about what it would be like to live in that neighborhood.
So Stacy, given the motion that's on the table now, do you feel you have enough direction to go back and work with the developer, or is there something else you need?
No, this is fine. That's what I've been doing all along. And in this case, he wanted me to bring it forward as is. So usually I would try to work towards recommending it to council before even bringing it to council. That's normally the process, but he didn't really want to change anything about this existing proposal. So I brought it as is. So yeah, I don't have any problem with the resolution.
Yeah, okay. Okay, I mean, I think we've all expressed ourselves, and we really do appreciate the fact that someone wants to build something wonderful for the community on the site, and we want it to be something wonderful that we can all get behind. So I'm going to call the question on this unless someone else has any comments. I don't see any hands. Okay, all in favor of the motion?
Sorry, Kathy, can we read that again?
Yes,
so I know what I'm voting for.
Yeah, sure. Cynthia, can you read back the motion? Hopefully.
That council consider the application for a zoning amendment for the property located off Thompson Street Avenue and direct staff how to proceed.
Okay, and then I see that Cynthia can't unmute, so she can't read what Stuart had said as the motion. Stuart, can you repeat it so Terry and everyone else here can get it? Because Cynthia's having a technical difficulty there.
I'll attempt to recall what I actually said, but I was directing staff to be creative and work with the developer to come up with a proposal for that site that provides the density to make it economic and meets all of our criteria.
Okay, let's see. Cynthia's just written here. She says that council directs staff to work with the applicant regarding the property development located off Thompson Avenue to develop a proposal for a multi-unit development that meets the requirements of the OCP, market demands, and feedback received. Is that it? Okay, so it says yes. Everybody's good. Oh, thank you, Cynthia, and sorry for having to have you type it all in the chat box. We've got some technical difficulties tonight. Okay, I'm going to call the question unless anyone has anything else. All good? All in? All in favor? Okay, and I see no one opposed. Okay, that's great. And we look forward to something else coming forward for that for that site, because it really is a wonderful site, and it really would be fantastic to have a seniors, a seniors facility there if possible. Okay, let me catch back up. I think we are, okay, so now we have referral from prior meetings, petitions, and delegations, and this was the delegation from Kathy Peters on the Be Amazing campaign, and we are to provide staff with further direction. Now, as you know, I just want to know what council wants to do with the 3 requests. They were endorse the Be Amazing campaign and Ms. Peters' presentation to other local governments, lobby the provincial and federal governments to address human sex trafficking, sexual exploitation, and child sex trafficking in BC, and provide a letter of support to the Be Amazing campaign. So can I have a motion, Stuart?
I propose we don't do anything.
Okay, is there a seconder for that? Okay, Janice will second. Little discussion, Stuart?
I like Christina's comment about staying in our lane. I don't have expertise on this subject. Obviously, she was very passionate, but I haven't got the time to wade into prostitution policy in British Columbia and get a sense of whether what she's saying is reasonable or the ravings of a madwoman. And I have no idea. So I don't want to make a decision on it.
Okay, Janice.
Yeah, I looked at what she asked for and the endorsing the campaign to other local governments. And actually, I believe that she said in her presentation to other local stakeholders, which to me was, businesses, everybody involved, along with lobbying the provincial governments. I didn't think we really, as Stuart has mentioned, I thought that was kind of out of our lane. A letter of support, if she feels strongly about this, I'd be okay with. But I'm also okay with, she seems to be doing very well. This is the second time we've heard from her. She's doing a great job of getting her thoughts and opinions out there on her own without our help.
Okay, anybody else? Okay, yes, Dirk.
Yeah, I think this is an important issue, so I'm keen to have some sort of voice, but obviously I don't know a whole lot about it myself. So a letter of support, that seems like a pretty easy one to knock off, and I'd be keen with that.
Okay, Chris and then Andy.
Yeah, very similar to what Dirk said. I mean, it's something that is beyond our local community at this point, and I appreciate all of the efforts that Ms. Peters has put forth in this, and I'd be ready to put a letter of support in the Be Amazing campaign to keep her rolling on it. That's about as far as I'd be willing to go, I think.
Okay, Andy.
I support the letter. I think it's really important. Obviously, yes, it is a provincial and federal legislation that would be, impactful on this issue. But again, it's communities that are directly affected, and I think as a community, we need to take some responsibility in these kind of issues. And I know Stuart and I wouldn't see eye to eye on some of these, but again, a letter, at the very minimum, I think is important to show our support. Thanks.
Okay. My thinking about it is I certainly don't know enough about the pros and cons of decriminalization of prostitution to take a position on it. So I didn't want to go into that, but I did feel that, we could certainly send a letter of support to the provincial and federal government, just requesting that they address sex trafficking, sexual exploitation, and child sex trafficking in BC, because it's not just from her that we've heard this as an issue. It has been an issue raised in the province for some time, and it has escalated. So that would be what I would support: a letter, just sending a letter to the provincial government saying, "Hey, please, we support you looking into this," and give it over to them, which is their authority. Stuart.
I could support a letter on those specific issues, but again, the Be Amazing campaign seems to conflate those with a bunch of other things that I don't necessarily disagree with or understand. So I wouldn't want to come out and explicitly endorse this campaign. But if we want to write a letter on those very specific issues, which I don't think anyone is against, then well,
Mhm.
everyone is against, then that's fine.
Yeah, that's where I got to also, because there were other things kind of getting confused in there. So let's see, so we have a motion that we don't do anything. We can vote that down, then we can have another motion to say we want to send a letter, and we can decide who we want to send it to and what we want it to address. How about that? Okay, so all in favor of the motion to do nothing? Okay. Oh, okay, 2. And opposed to the motion to do nothing? Okay. Okay, so that's defeated, and now we'll take a motion to do something. What will that something be, and who wants to make the motion? Andy.
I'll make the motion that we do address a letter in support of not the campaign, but the issues that were addressed to both province and federal government.
Okay, do we have a seconder for that? Terry second. Okay, Cynthia, hopefully you've got that. Any further discussion on this? Okay, Stuart?
Can someone just remind me what specific issues we're writing about?
Oh, I think we were talking about writing to the government to address, asking them to address human sex trafficking, sexual exploitation, and child sex trafficking in BC. We're asking them to look at those issues. Is that what you had in mind, Andy? Yeah, okay. Okay, got it, Stuart? Okay, okay. All right, anybody else comment? All good? All in favor? Okay, no one opposed. Okay, that's great, thanks. Okay, so now we have a request. This is a zoning amendment bylaw 2759. This is for 1926 Kirkup. And this is that we read it for a third time. So read it for a third time and then we adopt it. So third reading. Somebody? Okay, Andy and Janice. Remember, we're changing residential to residential infill, enabling a future subdivision, right? Any comments on that? All in favor of third reading? Okay, and a motion to adopt. Somebody? Dirk and Janice? No comments on adoption, I don't think. All in favor? Okay, good. Now we have a request for a zoning amendment 2762. This is on 2nd Avenue at 1st and 2nd. And this is that we read this for a first and second time, and also the applicant will ensure the alley to be maintained, and that we will set a public hearing for July 12th. This is the zone residential to infill for, they can have a short-term rental for family. Okay, so let's see, who's gonna move that? Janice and Dirk. Comment, Janice?
Yeah, it'll be, let's let the public get back to us. And other than that, I'm happy with their proposal.
Yep, Dirk?
Yeah, I think I was just a little bit confused what it means that they will be maintaining the alley. Is this like maintaining it clear of snow, clear of parked cars and trailers, weeds, gravel in good condition? I mean, it seemed a little vague and they might get a whole handful.
Intent was snow. I guess I should have put that in there. Because right now it's not being maintained by the city. So, but it's being cleared.
Is there will they be enforced to do that? Like if, you know, they're not clearing the snow and people are parking on the street, is it, I mean, what's the repercussions?
Yeah, that will be, they'll lose their business license and they can be fined too.
Okay, I'm not sure who was up first. I'm gonna call on Terry and then Chris.
Yeah, just I had a spin by there. I did not go down the back alley. I saw later in the minutes that the issue about the back alley, but I guess, and this is a question to Stacy again, but the idea of off-street parking, it seems that's a slippery slope or a tricky bit when coming to guest houses and short-term rentals. And this one, that was my spidey senses on this, that this was an end run and they're trying to do the parking in there. So we'll let as Janice said, let's let their neighbors talk to this, but on paper, the parking doesn't look good. I haven't looked at the back alley though. Stacy, have you got any comments on what that back alley parking is like?
That is where most of the parking is for the suite. The suite is located off the alley.
Okay, I'll go have another look. Thanks. But yeah, let's let their neighborhood talk about it.
Yeah, the picture was really tough on that one. Chris,
Yeah, similar to Terry, I have a question about the parking and the availability of parking both off of Second Avenue as well as the alley. And then, but my other question is, the alley typically has been maintained up to a halfway point. Will that mean the alley is going to be completely maintained all the way from St. Paul right to Manita? What is it, Manita? No, St. Paul to the other street.
No, the intent is that the alley is maintained to just access their parking, because that suite is located off the alley. Was permitted to be there, I guess relatively recently. Generally now we would require an agreement in place to make sure that alley would continue to be maintained if it's not maintained by the city. So that's why this recommendation that it continue, because right now it's just being maintained by the applicant, but what happens sometime down the road if it's a new owner and they no longer maintain it when all the parking in the suite is accessed back there?
Thank you.
can we require some sort of permanency to that? I mean, as long as they want to operate as a suite, they have to maintain that alley. So even if it's a new owner, yeah, okay. Okay, any other questions on this one? Okay, and as we've all noted, we'll have a chance to hear from the public before this is finalized, so let's just move it forward. All in favor? Okay. Okay, next we have a zoning amendment 2763, and this is on Victoria Avenue, 1st and 2nd. You can certainly see how busy planning has been for this agenda. We have so many on this. And this we are doing first and second reading and also scheduling for the public hearing on July 12th. So got a mover and a shaker on this one. Terry moves and a seconder. And that's Andy. Okay, Terry.
Yeah, I drove by and had a look, and it actually looks like it's a tricky corner, but probably not a lot of traffic there. And it actually looks like they do have adequate parking there. So
yeah.
happy to see
Large
that
lot for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Andy. No comment. Stuart.
I drive that neighborhood in the wintertime, and it's one of the steeper, icier parts of town. You know, I don't know about you'd want to have a four-wheel drive vehicle with good winter tires to be able to access it. I don't know if that figures into things, but it's one of the least accessible parts of town.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it is a steep hill for sure. Stacy, was that discussed with the proponent at all?
No, we did comment on that, but it's not one of the criteria that we evaluate, but we did that it was challenging street.
Yeah, they may be pulling a lot of their guests out of the snowbank. Okay, so any other comments on this one? Okay, I'm going to call the question again. This will go to a public hearing, so we'll hear from the neighbors. All in favor? No one opposed. Okay, so now we've got some policy reviews, a bunch of policies. So freedom of the city, that we approve the freedom of the city policy as presented. You never know when we're going to have a hero to acknowledge. Do I have a mover? Chris and Janice, any comments? No, Janice, none. Stuart?
Yeah, this just seems some archaic thing that we should just get rid of to me. I mean, we're essentially, you know, granting military units the right to march through the city. I mean,
why
do we have this?
No, that's actually not true. It's for acknowledging, you know, extraordinary efforts by individuals, and it could be military. It's not. It's an extraordinary honor. Freedom of the city is it's an honor. Like if somebody did something really fantastic, like the first person walking on Mars was from Roslyn, we might give them freedom of the city. Stuart?
It has a specific meaning because of its history. I actually did read about it. You know, I think if we want to have something contemporary where we actually, you know, Citizen of the Year or Special Roslander, or, you know, I'd be happy with something where if that's what we were doing, just awarding someone from the community, we should have a name there. But this just seems mired in, I think it was from granting respected citizens freedom from serfdom was the original origin, and then it came to mean granting military units the right to march through the city, which still does include that. That's, you know, we have, it's in the policy how we award this to military units.
Good, we could. Okay, Andy, and then Dirk.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with you on this one, Stu. I think this is archaic, and I'd like to see us take out the military reference to it. And I have no problem, you know, with bestowing someone some unique achievement, have that opportunity. But as far as the military reference, I'm fine to drop that. I'd like to see us do that.
Okay, Dirk.
Yeah, my only thought was I agree with Stu on this one as well, and don't like all the military stuff, but perhaps we can just let this one go now with a firm expiry date. So instead of it coming back on June 22nd next year, you know, we get a Citizen of the Year, the Stuart Spooner Freedom of the City Award or something.
Probably come up with a better name for something.
we do have an annual a community contributor award, which is sort of our equivalent of a Citizen of the Year award that we do. That's based on applications, when people not applications but nominations. The citizens put forward a nomination, and then we pick someone and we award that in the fall. Right? We do that, which is a little different than this. This is meant you don't have to actually have contributed to anything in Roslyn to be here. I don't think it's, you just have to be a prestigious person in our community. I may be wrong on that. Actually, there might have been some language there, but okay, now I think it's Chris and then Dirk.
So it's outlined in the community charter. Do we have the ability to pull it from our policy?
I have no idea. Excellent question. And I don't know if any staff knows that. Cynthia, do you have an idea on that?
I don't, but I'd have to look it up. I would think it would be, I would think council would have privy to be able to either rework the policy or just get rid of it.
Okay, Chris? No, wait. That was it. And then wait, no, somebody.
It's you know, we're going to talk a little bit further down the road about lowering the flag and a lot of the things that are right within our country and what we believe in. To remove it without making sure that we can, I think it's prudent to make sure that we can.
Okay. So right now the motion on the table is that we approve it as presented. That's the motion. So if we want to vote it down and not approve it, and then put another motion in saying we want to refer it back to staff to see if we can nuke it entirely, we could do that, you know, or we can approve it as presented. We can do whatever we like. So unless there's any other comments. Oh, Terry.
Oh, I was gonna move that we adopt it. I mean,
okay, that's already been moved, I think, right? We had a mover, didn't we?
Yeah.
Now I'm getting confused. Hopefully we did. I think we had a mover and a seconder to do it as presented.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to call the question on that. All in favor of as presented? Okay, that's 4 of us, and opposed 3. So we're going to oppose. Yeah, okay. So we've got 3 opposed and 4 in favor. So we're going to keep it. But it's something to consider for sure. If we, you know, I don't know when the last time it was awarded was actually. Not been since I've been on council, but probably was at some point, probably in, you know, 1869 or something, before we were incorporated. Okay, so, okay, more comments. Dirk.
Can we do another motion to ask Cynthia the feasibility of nuking it?
Sure. Make that motion.
Can I move that? That we
okay.
Different words, but
yeah, I was going to say, would you like the word nuke in there? Or do you want to?
Or revise it?
Yeah. Well, I'm sure we can revise it. It's whether, you know, I think the question is, can we just do without it entirely if it's in the community charter, or where it comes from. So you want to direct staff to look at whether we can get rid of it entirely.
I mean, it's a worthwhile
Abolish it.
exercise that we can apply to other policies if needed. So it'd be interesting to find out if we can just abolish a policy.
Okay, is there a seconder for that?
I'll second that.
Okay, any further discussion on that? Call the question on the checking out whether we can abolish it. Okay, all right, we're giving staff an important task. I think it can go pretty low on the task list, though, I gotta say. Okay, next, we're moving on to proclamations. The council approves the proclamations policy as presented. So a mover here, Dirk and Chris. Okay, Dirk.
Yeah, this not having a proclamation for fear of insulting, or I mean, what do we care if we insult? You know, we have somebody wanting to do a KKK rally in town and we tell them no, we won't do that. Like, why are we not allowing ourselves to support something good for fear of offending something arguably probably not good?
Well, this actually isn't about supporting or not supporting an activity. This is about, we don't say this is Cancer Week or this is Ku Klux Klan Week or this is, you know, we don't say this is the week of whatever it is, supporting or not supporting. And one of the reasons is because municipalities get so many requests for these kind of things. These things would be popping up on our agendas all the time. Because you get, I mean, you look at our information package, there's often things, oh, this is the week of the child, this is the week of adoptions, this is the week of the dog, this is the week of the bear, you know, it just goes on and on. So having this policy means none of those things have to come to our agenda. We have this on if we don't have this policy, these things will come to our agenda. So Chris had his hand up and then Stuart.
Anything that's important enough comes to our agenda. You know, and I agree with Kathy on this. We could be mired up with so many things. So anything that's important enough to talk about, we do talk about, period.
Yeah, we just don't talk about proclamations. I mean, it could be an important proclamation, but if a proclamation just means we proclaim this is the week of such and such, or this is the day of so-and-so, right? And those are the things we don't do. Stuart.
Yeah, I'm liking saying staying in our lane as many times as I can tonight. So I think it helps with that.
Yeah, well, it does. But, you know, this doesn't preclude us from doing things like approving painting a rainbow sidewalk, right? Or even we have in the past sometimes flown the rainbow flag or the Quebec language flag or something. We've done those things, which are things, not proclamations. And there is a difference there. So this just kind of cuts down on the noise. Okay, Chris, is your hand up because you want to speak again, or it's just up? Okay, anybody else want to talk about proclamations? Okay, all in favor of maintaining this policy? So, okay, good. And I bet staff breathes a sigh of relief because we don't want to get inundated. Okay, so now we have advertising and promotion so that we approve this as presented. No changes to that small budget item. Do I have a mover, Andy, and a seconder? Terry, okay, any comments on this one? Nope, comments, no comments, all good to go. Away we go, call the question. Okay, okay, here we have anti-racism policy and that we approve it as presented. So a mover, Chris and Janice. All right, Chris, comment? Nothing, okay, Janice, nothing, Stuart.
Yeah, I have learned more about this in the last 6 months than the rest of my life. Seems to be the issue of the moment. But what it's made me realize is that pretty much everything we do in Roslyn, every part of our operations and almost all of our policies could quite conceivably be characterized as systemic racism. And yet we have a policy that says we will not tolerate it. And we don't do anything about it. And it doesn't seem likely we are going to do anything about it. So why do we have a policy saying we will not tolerate it?
Can you give us some examples of our racist behavior?
No, I'm talking about racist behavior. I'm talking about systemic racism. And this is a complicated topic, Kathy.
Well, yeah, but I'm just trying to get what you're getting at, right? What you're
getting at, why do we have a policy that we don't follow? why do we put, I mean, yes, we have, you know, much of this policy duplicates the BC Human Rights Act. It duplicates our respect for workplace policy. And to that extent, it's completely, there's no issues. It's all on side. Where it goes beyond that is into describing our position on systemic racism. And we are a community that has pretty minimal racial diversity. And yet all of our policies and operations are geared towards the existing population. And but to that extent are not providing opportunities for racialized groups. I mean, they're just not. I don't think it's a problem, but we have a policy saying that we won't tolerate it. So why are we saying that if we're not going to do that?
I'm sorry, I'm really struggling to see how our policies discriminate against people. I mean, yes, we are not a very diverse community, but it's not that way because we've got a gate at the door saying we don't want you. You know, I don't know.
Well, we'll have to have this discussion. I don't think it's
over a beer.
Over a beer, but I don't see a lot of appetite for doing this. But having a policy that says that we are not going to tolerate systemic racism when we are just seems pointless.
Okay, Terry.
I think it's good that we have something in writing that recognizes that as a value. This is what we hold to be the standard by which we want to live by, and that there's actually a formula for what are we going to do about it if we see it. I'm with Stuart. It's like grabbing Jell-O, but I still think it's a good policy to have in hand that says that this council recognizes that it's a problem out there and that we take a stand against doing better or recognizing it and stopping it when we see it.
I think that's good. I also like the anti-racist graphic that was in there, becoming anti-racist, and you could see where you track on the scale and how many of us actually have conversations, take action and all the rest of it. I mean, it is good. It is good, but it serves as a reminder, and just to say, I don't know, to do away with it seems like a step backwards, and to have it seems like a step forward, even if it is a small step. Chris.
Just to that point, Kathy, having it within our community and having a policy within our community that speaks to this, I think is equally as important as having this policy in every community. So I think that leaving it here is a great thing. To Stuart's point, I see what you're saying, Stuart, 100%, and this gives us something to work with. At least we're still in the beginning stages of this. And you're right, Kathy, the graphic on it is excellent.
Yeah, okay. Yes, Stuart, we need to have a conversation about it for sure, because I'm really interested in your viewpoint.
I don't want to push the issue because I'm not seeing any support whatsoever, and I don't feel that strongly about it. But if it was up to me, it just seems like policy objective number 1 could just be removed, and that like policy objective number 2 covers all the ground of what we're actually doing. It sets those aspirational targets, says who we are and what we want to be, but without saying we're doing something that we don't. But anyway, that's what I think.
Okay. Okay. I'm going to call the question on this unless you can put a. Well,
yeah.
Okay.
I probably have to need to talk to you all personally about it before I can push my own ideas on this subject.
Yeah. Okay. Well, it'll come back around, right? We review these things on a regular basis. Okay. I'm going to call the question. All in favor? Okay. Okay. All right. Now we've got half masking the Canadian flag. So this, the recommendation is that we approve it as amended. And I think some very sensible amendments were made. I want to thank staff for that. And I'll take a mover, Dirk, and a seconder is Janice. Dirk.
Yeah, can I just add that we clean up consensus? I mean, consensus is what, 2 of 3 people that respond to their emails say yes, or can we just say like minimum of 4 counselors responding to emails affirmatively. Consensus just seemed a little loosey-goosey, and we already saw what loosey-goosey can do.
Yeah, good point. So can you point out that I don't have the agenda with that right in front of me? Do you have the point number?
I think it was, oops, wrong. Oh, shoot, sorry, pressing the wrong buttons like crazy. It was half-mast. I don't remember which one it was.
Well, you could just direct staff.
Okay, yeah, bullet 1 just says consensus of council expressed via email correspondence, but I think that just should be tidied up to be like a majority of council or
Majority of council. Okay.
all of council, not just responders.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. That's a good point. So that's an amendment to our amended policy. So we'll vote on that. So Dirk makes that amendment and somebody seconds that. Andy, okay. So I don't think we need any discussion on that. All in favor of that little addition?
No.
You do.
Yeah, I get some.
Sorry.
I actually don't want to do. I don't like this idea.
Okay, hold on. I'm going to bring it up here because I've got it in the background on my screen. Okay, so go ahead, Stuart. Talk.
Well, I actually don't like the idea of us just firing around emails because we want to half-mast the flag because something ticks us off during the week.
Okay. Okay, that's perfect. You can vote against. You can vote against the motion, but you can.
Yeah.
What we're talking about now is just this little addition, this one little piece that Dirk is adding, which is that it's a majority of council that is agreeing to the half-masting. That's the part we're talking about right this second. So do you want to speak to something on that?
Well, no, I'm against it. Full stop, not amended or otherwise.
Okay. Well, you'll get a chance to vote on that. You get a chance to vote on that. But right now, we're just talking about that, changing that language from consensus to majority of council for that little piece. Okay. Dirk, did you want to say something more on that?
Yeah, just kind of to Stu's point that this is voting on something that's relatively inconsequential and often very time sensitive. So, we have even several meetings or several months a year where we only have one meeting. If we have to wait 1 month, until we can do something about this, I think that this is a very, very simple thing to do something that's at worst, people are going to be upset because the flag is only halfway up the pole.
Right. And this is something specific to this policy, just so we're clear. Okay, so I'm going to call the question on this little amendment of taking it to majority of council instead of just consensus. All in favor of that addition? Okay. Now back to the main policy, and this is where you can disagree, Stuart. The policy with the changes that have been put into it. So does anybody want to speak about that besides what we've already spoken to? And I can't remember, Janice, you were the seconder. Did you have anything you wanted to say?
Yeah, the only thing that I would add, and it sort of does go to Stuart's point, is that voting to having an email majority about, as Dirk has mentioned, it's often something that has happened in a short period of time. To give adequate or meaningful recognition, lowering the flag has to happen in a relatively quick period of time. And again, as Dirk says, the worst thing that's going to happen is someone's upset because the flag's halfway up the pole. It's not a budgetary or operational concern. It's really not an administrative concern. It's not, So I'm happy for this particular item only to be able to have both ourselves and future councils be able to deal with it on a timely manner.
Okay, great. Any other comments on this policy? Okay, yes, Stuart.
I want us to stay in our lane. I mean, it's all pretty trivial stuff, whether we have the flag up or down. I mean, it doesn't really matter. I don't feel that strongly about it. But again, I don't want to be spending my time. I mean, yes, we all care about all sorts of things going on in the world. But that's not our role in municipal government. Was it not what I see our role as in municipal government? I want us to just focus on running Roslyn, not deciding whether something that happened on the other side of the world rises to the level of concern that we have to put a flag up. That's not what I want coming in my email feed during the day. I want to stick to the basics.
Yes, yes, and you're going to be frustrated with that because we get all kinds of stuff that isn't necessarily related to the running of Roslyn. That actually control of what goes up and down our municipal flagpoles is within the control of Roslyn. So, you know, it is something that we do address, right? As do all municipalities, right? Okay. Yeah.
But we have a policy that covers just about everything except for this one where we can just, you know, we don't have to think about whether we put it up or down when a provincial cabinet minister dies. It just happens. But
that's right.
If we want to celebrate, you know, or celebrate or commiserate some important thing, then, you know, we've got to put intellectual energy into the issue at random times of day.
Yes, and I know we don't like to do that more than we have to, but I honestly don't think this is the kind of thing that comes up very frequently. I mean, everyone realizes when you half-mast the flag, it is for the utmost respect and honor for something that has happened. And that's not always saying this is something that happened in BC. It happened in, you know, I mean, I don't know. I think we might be overthinking this a little bit. Terry, did you have your hand up? Oh, Chris, you had your hand up. Sorry, I don't know who was first.
Go ahead, Terry.
Okay.
Well, I just think of the Kamloops residential school episode, and I would have been, that's the kind of thing that we need to just be able to say, we recognize this and this is horrible, and we honor this. So Stuart, I disagree with you. I think it's our place to, from time to time, make a public statement for our town that something needs to be recognized in this regard.
Yeah. Thanks, Chris.
It's thanks. It's part of being Canadian. Like, it's part of our national responsibility to be able to make these decisions. And I think that even if we just follow the guide of our federal and our provincial governments on what to do with it, and not necessarily have to make the decisions that we're talking about, it could happen quicker just by following what's the lead. Yeah,
I think that's a good point. That's a good point, and I think that is what will happen in the future. This probably wouldn't have even come up for us. Dirk, now I want to wrap this up, guys, because we want to move on. But go ahead, Dirk.
Well, it's worth pointing out that only 4 people need to respond to an email about this. We don't have to have a discussion. We don't have to have a negative response. Just 4 supportive emails, and that's it.
Right. Yeah. So it's pretty straightforward and pretty simple. We'll probably never spend as much time on it as we have this evening. So I'm going to go ahead and call the question on the policy as amended with a small amendment to the amendment. Okay. All in favor? And opposed? Okay. All right. Thanks. All right. So now, okay, now we are on policy, COVID-19 policy. And this is that we approve this as amended. I have a mover. And Terry and Dirk. Terry, go ahead.
Sorry, looks like common sense changes. I'm good with it. Not much to add.
Okay, Dirk.
Just kudos to staff for keeping track of this.
Mm-hmm.
On an hourly basis. I mean, it's a lot of work.
Yeah. Other comments? Yes, Chris.
Can we make a policy to abolish COVID-19 completely?
Yes, I think that's within our power. Stuart, within our lane?
Awesome.
Yeah, that's great. Okay, I did have just a couple of comments. I think in some places, maybe the language should change from should to are advised to, because we have to be consistent with other language dealing with suggestions, not orders or laws. Like it says, all provincial federal travel advisories should be adhered to in regard to local, domestic, international travel when it comes to staff and council. And I'm okay with it, especially after the media storm. But I do think we need to remember advisories are not laws or orders, and it misses the point that travel can be done with a high level of safety. And then I think also, if we're going to put in all of these advisories about travel, we should also add something that all residents and employees are encouraged or should or be advised to get vaccines, because that's actually the thing that's going to have a bigger impact on getting rid of this pandemic than whether someone crosses in their health zone or their province or wherever. So I would like to add something like that. And I didn't put down a number of where it should go, but I think staff could find that. So I will make that motion to add residents, residents, employees, counselors, whatever, should be advised to get vaccines as per the Minister of Health and IH. Dirk, first, do I have a seconder for that? Add that in? Dirk, okay. Dirk, you want to speak to it? I think I just did.
Yeah, I think I would go to Stu on this one. I think advising about vaccines is definitely out of our lane. That's quite a complicated thing. And while I do think we all need to get vaccines, or the majority of us, I think the city actually advising it is probably not something we should do.
Encourage? We're talking about provincial and federal travel advisories. We're putting that in there. Is that in our lane?
True, not really, but I think we could model getting vaccines, but I think that is firmly in public health. I wouldn't support putting the vaccine as much as I support getting vaccines. Yeah, that's my 2 cents.
Okay. Let's see, Andy.
So just the statement that we're asked for compliance with provincial and federal suggestions or recommendations, is that not covering vaccines as well?
Well, I mean, I think the specific language was talking about travel, but wait, maybe I missed that. Is that, which one are you looking at?
No, I'm just wondering if we added that as a statement, is that not have enough teeth?
Yeah, let's see. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I'm looking at residents should adhere to all current suggestions regarding travel. And then residents should adhere to all federal travel bans and or restrictions, which may include but not limited to self-isolation and testing. I don't know, I mean, they seem like it's looking sort of travel centric to me. I'm trying to find a spot where it would be, where that would be covered generally. Stuart.
I mean, we're already encouraging people to use hygiene measures as recommended by the BC Centre of Disease Control. We could probably find a way to, encourage people to, follow the guidance of the Public Health Office in regard to vaccines.
Yeah.
Where we get a bit of middle ground. We're not actually telling people what to do. We're advising them to follow the guidance of the provincial, authorities on this matter.
Right. Yes. Okay. So that would be a good spot for it. I'm just trying to find that where that is, which number that is.
6.
Oh yeah. Visitors use social distancing, face masks, hygiene measures as recommended by BC Centre of Disease Control. So hygiene measures and vaccinations as recommended. Would that fit? Why is everybody so afraid of vaccinations when we're not afraid of travel advisories?
Well, because people have very strong opinions on the matter, Kathy, as you're probably aware, and that certain people are going to feel that it's not our place to tell them what to do. But I think we can sort of square that circle if we, rather than telling them what to do, we suggest they follow the advice
right
of the province, which does have the mandate to recommend health policy in the province,
right,
where we don't.
Yes. So that would that be changing the language that's in 6, face masks and hygiene measures, or just and other recommendations to not talk about the V word, maybe? I'm going to go to Janice while you think about that. I'm just not sure about the language. I like the concept, but I'm not sure about the best language. Janice.
I think that other health recommendations as outlined by the BCCDD is an excellent way to do it. Our entire policy talks about provincial and federal guidelines, health guidelines. We're not making these rules. This is our internal policy asking people that they should follow the rules as outlined by the province and the federal government. And they should follow the guidelines and the recommendations from the BCCCD for all health advisories, including vaccination, but not specific to vaccination. It's everything. So it is washing your hands. It is wearing a mask. It is social distancing. It is, limiting travel. The virus doesn't travel, people do. It's all those things. Yes, without specifically saying vaccination.
Right. We can say
I
face
agree.
mask, but not
I'm going to go with Stuart on the out of our lane on this.
No, I like it. I'm good with it, but I'm just trying to get the language. So as health measures and other health recommendations I'm just trying to get the language in that. If we're looking at 6, and Dirk, you have your hand up, so maybe somebody can be crafting a little language while you're speaking.
Christy was wanting to weigh in on this one too.
Oh, okay. You know what? I've got this up on my screen and I can't see Christy. Christy, go ahead.
I was just saying, I helped provide a little bit of the language in this from some of our internal policies for our facilities. And there's a couple spots in there for staff. I don't remember offhand exactly where, but it does say that because things are always changing, including coming up July 1st, face masks are about to change as well. So keeping it broad and just saying, as you guys, a couple of you have pointed out, that if you're talking about the public in this case, that they follow all recommendations provided by the BCCDC, which may include but are not limited to, and you could include some of the current recommendations as examples, but they will be changing again in a couple of weeks' time here.
Yeah, that's true. Face masks will definitely be the first to go before vaccines. But yeah, okay, I like that. I like making something general in there. Okay, Dirk, your hand is up.
Yeah, I just wanted to point out that the province itself mandated face masks, but they will not mandate vaccines. I think it's a complicated, convoluted, although I will say again, it is very much the right thing to do for your community and ourselves, but specifying it, I don't think is the right move.
So encouraging whatever the rules are is probably the right thing to do, and keep it as general as possible. Chris.
So if I were to reword it, I would say the city strongly encourages residents and visitors to use all measures as recommended by the BC Centre for Disease Control.
Oh, I like it. And then you can put that in any place that this policy has, whether it's for the public or our employees or council or whatever. How about that?
Yep. And as it changes, we can evolve.
Yeah, well, and as it changes, we don't have to change it because we've already left it open for whatever they're recommending. How's that? Okay, Cynthia, does that make sense to you?
Yes, I got it. Thanks.
Okay, I like that. Any other discussion on this? Can I call the question with this policy as amended with that more general support for all things health related? Oh, Terry. Oh, we're voting. Okay, good. Call the question. We're voting. All in favor? Okay, that's great. Thanks. Okay, so now we've done the tennis society. We now have, this is the development variant permit for 2276 Fifth Avenue. And the staff recommendation is that we approve the DVP, and it's a reduced setback for the driveway to increase for a double carport. And it has a couple of variances, taking down the 4 meter to 0.3 and the driveway width from 4 to 7. We have gotten a couple of letters from the neighborhood, which I hope everyone has seen, right? I think there were 2, one that Janice sent kind of late that had gone just to her and Stacy, and one that came into city. Everybody see those? Yes? Nod your head, yes, yes, okay. Okay. So they're trying to create a 2-car covered carport, and we need to talk about it. So somebody want to make the motion to approve? Stuart makes a motion to approve, a seconder. Dirk. Okay, Stu, you want to talk about it? Oh, you're muted.
Yeah, I'm going to speak against it.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't think every lot in town has enough space to put a double car garage on. I don't think it's our obligation to compromise our community character and function just so that everyone can have a double car garage. You know, if you want, you buy a bigger lot.
Yeah. Okay. Let's see, Terry. Terry, were you the seconder? Who was the seconder? Sorry. Oh, Dirk. Okay, Dirk, and then I'll go to Terry.
I agree, and for the most part with Stu, I think that I don't think they all need to be that close to the property line. Yeah, that is a tricky little bit of road. And while I think people should drive within their means, and it shouldn't be that tough, it will be. And so sight lines are important. And I think this is a tricky one. I like how it looks, but I don't think it's quite the right spot that far forward anyways.
Okay. Terry?
Yeah, I'll be, I don't like this. I'm intimately familiar with that corner and the sight lines. I went and looked at it again today. I used to live across the corner there, and I don't think this is a good fit.
Okay,
Safety wise or visually.
Okay, Chris?
I echo that. I've been on that corner going as slow as I possibly can and lost it coming around that corner. It's a really dangerous spot, and I think safety is the number one factor here.
Okay, anybody else? Stacy, do you have any comments on this one?
No, the only thing I would say is that from a sightline perspective, there is a large lilac bush between the neighbor on the uphill side and the downhill side, and the court will be lower than that. So the sightlines are maybe not as challenging as some people think. I'm wondering, there is also 4 to 5 meters of boulevard between the road and the property line. So maybe some people weren't aware of that. As to, I think one of the concerns talked about operations. Emily, who now works in the planning department, actually used to plow this. She said they don't put snow there, they never have. They usually put it between this one and the neighbor to the west. And then they put it in the Monte Cristo right-of-way across the road. I agree, it is a very challenging corner. It's also my neighborhood, so I know it, travel it a lot. So I do agree it's a challenging corner. What happens now is this property, they have 2 cars and they park back to back. And that has shown that it doesn't work, because usually it ends up that one car is parked on the street and one car is in the driveway. And that is more frustrating to Public Works than anything else. They have that actually as a request in our zoning bylaw updates, to remove the ability to be able to park behind each other, because it doesn't work. Experience has shown.
Is it at all possible that they could do it with a little bit less variance so it didn't come out quite as far? That like a 3.7 meter variance is a pretty big chunk. Is it possible for them to make it a little smaller and still meet their needs? That was my concern with it. No. Okay. Okay. Any other comments on this? Wait, hold on. We didn't hear you.
Sorry, I said perhaps, but this was the request. So
right. I'm just thinking if it got turned down, if there was a way to, come back again with something else. But Terry.
So Stacy, from your perspective, this is actually going to make it better for snow clearing and better for safety, because that car isn't sitting there, or that parked car isn't on the street.
Yeah, what happens now is generally one car is in the driveway and one car is on the street in front of the house. And one of the respondents is correct, they could park in their driveway. They do have room for sure. back to back in their driveway, they do, but that's not convenient.
Right.
So,
Yeah, that was
Right.
my question. Is it out of necessity or out of convenience?
it's convenient.
Janice,
Well, I was just noting that in the applicant's form that he sent in, that they sent in, can't assume it's the he. You know, there was a lot of discussion about workbenches and gear storage and outdoor space being available in the winter when the backyard's full of snow, and paving over some of the yards so he doesn't have to cut the grass. It really, you know, he didn't really make a really great case that it was because parking is his biggest issue. It sounds more like storing things in his garage and not using it to put a car in it is his biggest issue.
yeah, I didn't actually get that sense from it myself particularly. I didn't really have an issue with this until we started getting the letters about the sight lines, but I think Stacy makes a pretty compelling case. I do know that property, and yeah, I don't know. I mean, if you got two cars in there shotgun style, you're going to have more cars backing in and out, which creates maybe a bigger problem. You got to move them each time you want to move anything. Maybe it's a bigger safety issue. I don't know. Stuart.
What if they had 3 cars? I mean,
Then
it's,
they'll
not
be one on the
it's not our obligation to reconfigure our town around how many cars people want to have. They could just we could build a 2-car garage and then they decide to have 3 and then they park another one out there. I mean, we make our policies not based on how many cars this individual wants to own.
No, that's true. And I don't think we're making our decision on that. We're making our decision on, you know, how it is going to work in the community. I mean, we try and work with our residents, but we also work for the greater benefit of the whole community. So
No, I don't think we don't want every street to be, you know, triple car garages over the entire front lot up to the street. I mean, that would be that's not the sort of neighborhoods we want to live in. So we put reasonable things that we can apply to everybody in a neutral way, and you know, unless there's a really compelling circumstance, I don't think we should be just giving people the right to do what we don't grant everybody else.
Yeah. Okay. Chris and then Terry.
I don't think it's going to alleviate their parking problem. I think they're still going to be parking the same, but they're going to have more stuff to put in the garage. Could be 3 cars, could be boat, could be whatever. I think the cars are still going to be on the street.
Yeah, I don't know that we can speculate about that necessarily. Terry.
I'm trying to this is sounding eerily familiar with the Pinewood application that we turned down, and I guess I'm looking for a little consistency, but my memory's failing me. And like, what's the same or different about this application? You know, it feels the same for some reason. Like they wanted a setback, they wanted extraordinary. Stacy?
And the one in Pinewood was much bigger than this.
Okay.
Yeah, they wanted, I don't remember the specifics, but it was basically 3 cars wide. And this is 2 cars, so.
Yeah.
Okay, any other discussion on this? So the motion is that we approve this. And I'm going to call the question. All in favor of approving it? Okay, and opposed? Okay, all right, that one fails. Okay, so, now we have a request for council decision, appointment of our chief financial officer. And that is that we appoint Michael Kennedy to the statutory position of financial officer for the corporation of the city of Roslyn, as described in our statutory officers bylaw. Who wants to move that? Janice does, and Chris seconds it. Okay, any comments on this?
Does Mike know that once we vote on this, he has to stay?
Yeah, he's stuck.
That's right.
Chris.
I met him today. He seems okay. You know, I don't know. I'm not sure really. Okay. But
don't worry, he's got a 6-month probation period. We're good.
Perfect.
Okay, no, I just want to say we are so happy to have Michael with us. We are going to miss Elma like crazy, but he is going to do great. So I'm really excited. Okay, I'm going to call the question on this one. All in favor? Yeah. Oh, look at that. Unanimous. Awesome, people. Okay, so now we've done Thompson, thank goodness. Oh, we have our annual report. This is that we consider the draft city report, and further that we schedule the annual meeting to consider any submissions or questions from the public on July 12th. So first off, let's take that motion, and then I want to get any comments that council has. Okay, Janice makes the motion, and we have a seconder. Dirk seconds. All right, let's talk about it. Janice, what'd you think?
Oh, I love it. It's fabulous. I did note that there's a bit of a typo saying that it's going to be available beginning on June 23rd, 2020. which so we might just want to revise that to 2021, and then it'll be advertised in 2021. But no, it's another spectacular piece of work, and I think it covers a wide range of what the city does and what's been happening in the city, and it's very informative, and I wish more people would read it before they came to us to discuss things.
Yeah, boy, do I ever. Let's
and
see.
Honestly, it's so much more readable than even our 5-year financial plan. They're so readable now. They're very user friendly. They're not intimidating. I mean, sure, you get lost in the reserve section, but it gives you such a good overview of what the city's doing and how we're doing. And it's just such a valuable tool to help protect the organization.
Yeah, and you know what? I think it's up to all of us on council to really put it out to our networks and try and get our networks to read it, because the more people, people are interested in the city, and the more they know about it, the more informed and intelligent their questions and comments will be when they come to speak with us. So anybody else have comments on this? Anybody want to say anything else about it? I thought it was also just awesome. Dirk?
Yeah, just there's a lot in here. This is one that it's taken me a lot of time to read it, 2 or 3 pages at a time.
Yeah, we've been a busy little city, there's no doubt. So, okay, I'm going to call the question. This is that we don't have any further comments other than accolades, and we're scheduling the public hearing to get the public's input. Hope we get some public input. Okay, all in favor? Okay, great. Okay, so then we have our UBCM convention meeting request. Janet, I'm just going to turn this one over to you because you had the only idea that came forward. So.
Yeah, thank you. Oh, shoot. I just lost there's my notes. Yeah, so the childcare issue came up through the Economic Development Task Force. So I know that Kathy, you'd sent an email just sort of saying, what are we looking for? And are you aware of things? This is really just I think this is really just an opportunity at UBCM to discuss with the minister that, we have a lot of kids. We have, I know I put the growth in the backgrounder that, the growth had been outrageous, 54% more kids between the ages of 0 and 4 or something like that. But, in 2016, we had, in actual numbers, 430 kids between the ages of 0 and 9. And we certainly don't have 460 childcare spaces in Rawson. And it's a bit more complex than just, getting a grant and throwing it. We need the workers, we need a space, so for additional work to develop this for the actual meeting, I thought that I would go back to the task force and ask them to look into it. I know that they're going to be looking for some actionable type work moving forward rather than just information gathering. So I thought that we could throw this their way, and they could help us with this presentation, find out what programs are available, find out where we would start, how we would go. And it's probably not something that's going to happen in the next year or so, but if we get the ball rolling and we get some people involved and engaged, hopefully with the new federal and provincial interest in providing accessible and affordable childcare, we'll be able to get something going for Rossland.
Yeah, I think that's great. It's a really good initiative, for sure. Now, did you mention that you'd already put in the request for the meeting as well?
No, I didn't put in the request.
Oh, you didn't? Okay, I misread
I thought
something
you
you
said
said.
that staff did that.
Staff usually does, but I thought I read something where you said you'd put in the request. I was like, oh, okay, because this is where we would then ask staff based on the piece that you've put together, which I think is enough to go and request the meeting, and then you can get everything else with the Economic Development Task Force later, because the meeting won't be till first week of September, whenever they're doing them. So, okay, so Steph, we don't, probably Cynthia, this is for you. We don't need a motion to say we want to do this. You just need what Janice has put together to request the meeting, don't you?
That's correct. It may be worthwhile having a motion just because then we have the direction to complete the request.
Okay, that's great. All right, let's have a motion. Janice?
Okay, so the motion would be to schedule a meeting with the Ministry of Children and Family Services Child Care Division, which is Minister Dean, at the UBCM convention for 2021.
Perfect. Chris is seconding it. Okay, any further discussion? Okay, and then you can just work with Cynthia, whatever she needs for the little write-up that goes with the meeting request. Okay, all in favor? No one opposed. Good, thank you for doing that. That's great. All right, next we have that we approve the May 21 check register report as presented. Have a mover and a seconder. If anyone has any questions, we'll go from there. Chris moves it, a seconder. Janice second. Any comments or questions about the $589,000 we spent in May? Anybody? All on good city authorized purposes. So all in favor? Okay. Okay, now we have our city reports and council information. So I'm just going to call them out. If anyone has comments or questions, raise your hand and I'll stop. Otherwise, we've just been incredibly busy. My comment on these. So first up is the building permit report for May. Anybody want to speak to that? Seeing no one. Building permit inspection by type. Nope. Energy code rebate. Anything there? Dirk?
Well, I did have a question today that for Stacy. How long does it take from finishing a build to getting that back? I talked to someone who was waiting for it, and I'm just curious. Do you know what the timeline is, or is it just everybody's really busy and it's taking a long time?
No, generally the wait is actually for the energy label. As far as I understand, I could be wrong. As I understand, that's the main wait, that we won't give the rebate until we get the energy label, and that can take several weeks. That comes from the NRCan or the federal government, and that is the holdup. When it hits our desk, it's usually pretty quick, and within a couple weeks, I guess, through finance, it's pretty quick. It's the issue, I believe, is with the energy label.
But the owner would know, like, once it hit your desk. I mean, it's not the city they would know when it got to the city, and then there'd be a timeline. But
yeah,
okay.
Yeah, as far as I'm aware, there's no challenge with.
Okay, I think Elma has a comment.
Yeah, I was just going to say that, we have two different types of, what do you want to call, not like there's the rebate program where we rebate the permit fee. We also collect a security deposit. And when the build is completed, it has to be inspected by Public Works to make sure that it's to our standards before we release that money. So sometimes there can be a bit of a delay there. So just to, clarify that there's two different streams there.
Okay, Dirk?
Yeah, this was nothing to do with the city side. This was just wondering how long it's supposed to take to get that energy label back. That was the uncertainty. City's awesome. Just wondering about the label.
Yeah, it's the energy label that I understand is what takes the time.
Okay.
Okay. I had one question. Is it possible, like we get the year to date, but so we're seeing that one, the step 3 and the step 4, we've seen them before, right? They weren't this month, they were previous. I'd love to see it, if it's possible, that there's a date in there so we know, because I can't remember when I've seen them all before. Is it possible to have a date in there so we know when we're seeing actual new ones as opposed to ones that maybe happened in January?
Yeah, we can do that.
Okay, that'd be great for those of us with fuzzy brains that can't remember if I've seen it already. Okay, so that's great, and we're happy to see people. I'm really happy to see a couple 3s and 4s come through, because that was great. Okay, anybody want to speak to the bylaw enforcement report? Any comments on that? Well, one question for staff: have we hired our own bylaw person yet?
We have gone through the process. We do have someone slated to arrive mid-July, and so he'd be moving here to town. But you know, that's kind of where we're at. We're done the hiring process. It's just a matter of getting him here.
Okay, that's great. We'll look forward to meeting that new employee. Public Works report. Any comments on that? Again, another busy department. Water production. Yes, Andy.
So I'm noticing May, a substantial increase over 2020 for May. Bit of a surprise. I guess it's been dry spring, and probably everybody's already starting to water gardens. I noted on Facebook that there was some concern about water restrictions, and not that we have them, that we haven't initiated or strongly initiated yet. Just wondering, I know that we have water restrictions year round now. There seems to be some growing fear about the season, that we're, you know, obviously the next week of weather is starting to bode poorly for water. So I wondered if we could maybe accelerate our communication to our community about water restrictions. I know we also have an ambassador as well that has been hired. The other question that came up was issues around the reservoir. Noted a number of people have commented that they're concerned about how low the reservoir is. So just to get the information out to our residents.
Cynthia, do you have a comment on that?
Just a comment that the reservoir has been drained. So I think Scott spoke to it at a previous meeting, that it's due to the work on the dam at Star Gulch there. And our Water Smart ambassador is trying to hit the ground running at the moment. However, with COVID restrictions and health advisories, there are some restrictions to how she can communicate with the public. So we're waiting for some of those restrictions to lift as well. So we are trying to get some of that information out, and happy to accelerate some of the other stuff too.
Okay, great. Stuart, did you have your hand up?
Only that I was out at OFA with Scott the other day, and a bunch of staff, and observed that the OFA reservoir is full to overflowing.
Yeah, it is.
We currently have lots of water.
Yeah, Star Gulch is low for operations reasons, but OFA is really full for sure.
And I will say that I was just going to say that the majority of residents that have commented don't realize that OFA still contributes to the city's water. So it's interesting that people are seeing the visual on Centennial Trail of Star Gulch, and that I don't know if that information has been widely put out there, that it's because of the dam work that's being done, and that once that's completed, it'll be allowed to fill again.
Yeah, we could put that in our council newsletter. Actually, that's a really good point. Stuart.
What about an interpretive sign out at the on the Centennial Trail? There's a lot of people going by there. If they're all wondering what's going on, we could tell them.
We could tell them. It's a good idea. Cynthia, I don't know if that's possible or how long that condition on the Star Gulch is going to last. Do you have any idea? Or Stacy, maybe you do, somebody?
I don't, but we can find out from Scott.
Yeah, and if it's going to be a longer term thing, maybe it does make sense to put a little informative sign up there. But if it's going to be short term, it's hardly worth it, right? Okay, good point. good point. Okay, then the updated task list. Anything on that anybody wants to talk about? All good. Okay, so now we've deleted our request from Canada Day. So now we're into members reports. I'm going to start at the top of my screen with Dirk.
Yeah, I really didn't have much other than the RAS is meeting tonight. So they just gave me a few notes. They're going to reach out to Rosslyn Rec to see if there are further ways that they can help. They're still energized and doing a lot of things. They're looking for tips and guidance from experienced and successful grant writers. So if anybody has some or is watching this and would like to reach out to them to help with grant writing, they would be appreciative. And then the bottle bin is going to be closed for the summer. So we should stop drinking.
Okay, thanks. Okay, Stuart. Okay, nothing. Janice.
Yeah, I've June 8th, I attended a CBOL meeting. It's a really great group. They do a lot of wide-ranging things. We were setting priorities, reviewing our successes over the past year. Even the COVID put a huge chunk in, huge block in trying to get literacy stuff out to our citizens and to be able to gather people together. One of the biggest successes that made me laugh was some of the seniors today, they took turns teaching each other recipes. So one, they had to learn how to use Zoom, and then two, they had to share cooking ideas with each other. And as restrictions ease, they ask everybody, okay, do you want to stop using Zoom and go back to meeting and do this? And they're like, no, we like this. We like this. So from a literacy point of view, that's a huge step forward for some people who weren't necessarily comfortable using their computers for that sort of social gathering previously. Also that day, I attended and participated in the Economic Development Ideas Fair for the OCP process, and those surveys are still up and available. And so the more people who fill those in, the better the results will reflect our community as a whole. So a little pump for that. June 9th, I attended a Midtown Project Committee meeting. We're just finalizing the short and long-term agreements with all the participants. I also attended an Economic Development Task Force meeting that night. We reviewed the input from council from the presentation on the 7th, and that input was much appreciated by the group, by the way, so thank you very much. And built some plans for the next steps of outreach with our regional development partners. And then on June 10th, I attended a meeting with Marilyn James to discuss appropriate land acknowledgement and local government support for the autonomous Sinixt peoples. So, which was also a really interesting and informative meeting. Really great group of people there. So that's it.
Okay, great. Thanks. Andy.
So a number of regional district meetings that I will be putting together a written report for our next meeting. Yeah, not as busy, thankfully, although like our meeting tonight, there was lots of construction going on. So interesting around the regional district, and last year where they were looking for things to do for staff, now they're looking for staff. So for building inspection, it just has gone crazy. So that tends to take a lot of our board time. Like Janice, I also attended the meeting with what was the woman's name? Sorry, Marilyn James, and to talk about land acknowledgements. And boy, oh boy, as Stuart had pointed out, it's a very complicated issue, and it'll be interesting to have further conversations forward. And I agree that we shouldn't rush into anything right now, and we may be in a position to influence others on this kind of decision making and acknowledging our history far beyond the age of Rosslyn. So yeah, that's pretty much it. Yeah, that's it for me.
Okay, Chris.
Coming back off holidays, which was fantastic. And just to echo the shortage of staff, I think there's every business in Rosslyn that's looking for somebody at this point. So if we can do our best to reach out to people that are looking,
and just direct them into Rossland to any business, because any business will direct them to another one. Thanks.
Okay, great, good point. Terry?
Just my attendance at the OCP Natural Environment and Climate Change group. Went to that. Library's going gangbusters. They've got a lot of summer programs going on with take-home kits and traveling tree business and summer reading programs, and everybody there seems very pleased and energized by Stacy's presence there. So that's it for me.
Okay, great. As I mentioned, this is Indigenous Peoples Day, and along with Janice and Andy, I met with Marilyn James, the Seneca elder, and 2 of her staff people. It was really interesting. We are trying to bring this portion of our history into the OCP in some way, as well as to properly acknowledge, the land, and the people who use this throughout history, not just start with us like we're the first people, because we weren't. And learning about the Tenaya claim is really interesting and complicated. One of the things we talked about doing was having having to convene a group of local government people in the area to learn more. And one of the things that this group had said, they would send us some resource material and reading material that we could educate ourselves on this. So once we get those materials, we'll share them, and anyone who's interested can be involved in, it's essential understanding before we can get a land acknowledgement that's actually true and honest. In our information package, I sent out a note about this a little earlier. There was a request from MP Peter Julian seeking our endorsement for his motions that anti-hate crimes and incidents and private members bill banning symbols of hate. And I'd like to make a motion that we endorse that and lend our support to these pieces of legislation. I had a great quote in a different context that says simply, "What you allow continues." Or there's the more famous thing that says, "The only thing necessary for the triumph of evil is that good men do nothing." And I think that's where these kind of things fall into our lane, to use Stuart's line of the night, what's in our lane and what isn't. Anyway, so I'd like to make the motion that Mayor and Council of the City of Rossland endorse MP Peter Julian's private members motion M84, anti-hate crimes and incidents, and his private members bill, Bill C-313, banning symbols of hate. So do I have a seconder for that? Andy? Okay, want to discuss it? I don't think I have anything more to say about it other than what was in the package. Andy, as the seconder, would you like to comment? Okay, and Stuart had your hand up.
I must have missed that. I didn't see the. Was that an addition?
No, this was in our information package that went out on Friday, and I sent an email out about it today saying I was going to bring it up in the meeting.
Okay.
You may have missed that.
I missed that.
But okay, well, Dirk.
Yeah, I haven't had a chance to look at the bill, and so I'm a little hesitant to ban something that somebody's subjective is defining. So I'm not comfortable myself voting on it.
Okay. Well, it's sounding like neither you or Stuart had it, so we could defer this to our next meeting. I actually don't know when the vote is on this stuff. Actually, it might have said in that material, and now I don't know. Anybody else want to comment? This is why it's always good to look at emails when possible. No other comments? Okay, well, I'm going to call the question anyway since I put the motion on the table. So all in favor of endorsing the bills against anti-hate crimes and incidents and banning symbols of hate, things like Ku Klux Klan robes and, that kind of stuff. All in favor? That's me. Okay, and opposed? Okay, all right. And you guys who are abstaining, you are voting in favor because we don't abstain. So, okay. I can't hear you. You're voting against, Stuart?
Yeah, I'll vote against. I just don't feel comfortable voting for something I didn't look at.
Yeah, I understand that. So, and actually, I would have deferred it if I knew for sure that it would have been pointless to do it in July. I just don't know when it's coming up for the vote there. Anyway, we passed it. I don't think it's going to be a earth-shattering thing. Okay, so now here's the other thing. We had our Bear Smart community delegation, and we can wait, usually we do it in 2 weeks to say what we want to do, or we could give direction to staff to investigate what's required and possible grants to offset any costs, work it into our 2022 budget. I was very pleased that he said that the WildSafe coordinator can actually do a lot of the work for that bear hazard plan and the management plan. So we might have that, because we participate in WildSafe, we might have a fairly cost-effective way to get that portion of that done. But I don't know how anybody feels about that. If anyone wants to make a motion or whatever. Andy.
Yeah, I'd be keen to make a motion towards that. I certainly was also impressed by our new WildSafe coordinator. I think she seems like she's very in tune with the community, and likely going to be an effective in an effective position. So it would be wonderful if she's in a position to help us to move forward on a management plan, even if it's just research, et cetera.
Right. Okay. We don't know that for sure. I think what we need to do is ask staff to figure out if that's
Sure.
a possible thing, right? If that's, do you want to make a motion and then we'll see if there's a seconder and then we can discuss it. So what's your motion?
I'm happy to make that motion that we move
Okay.
forward.
Motion to direct staff to investigate what's required. And
Yep.
Set it. Okay. All right. Do we have a seconder? Chris is a seconder. Chris, you want to comment?
As we get more and more new people and new families into this town, it's more and more important that we educate them. So I'm all for it.
Yeah. Okay. And then Stu had your hand up, and then Dirk.
Yeah, I mean, I'm all for putting more resources into education. It's just really challenging to get, probably the new residents, they're probably the ones that'll actually change their behavior. But, lots of people have got lots of weird ideas about bears, and, it's really hard to make them change their minds. And, I think we're all pretty well aware of what the problems are, but, we've got people with fruit trees and gardens and composts and all their various habits, and I think we'd it'd be great. I wouldn't really support investing in a management plan, because I think all this stuff is pretty obvious. It's more just affecting behavioural change is the big challenge. I don't really have a good answer for how we do that, but that's what we need.
Sometimes having a roadmap helps, right? If you have the hazard assessment and that you can start to build on that. And even people who don't want to change are sometimes forced to. Does happen. Let's see, I think it was Dirk and then Andy.
To your last point, I'll be making some changes this week.
Yes. Oh, your poor chickens. I'm sorry. I bet the kids were devastated.
Oh.
No. Okay. Andy.
No, they weren't actually devastated. Actually, Mava wanted to see the dead chicken in the bag. So that was kind of interesting to see. So kids are surprising sometimes.
I guess.
I think it is important to establish a management plan. My concern is that there's lots of, as Stu had pointed out, there's lots of folks that are just as habitual as the bears are, and so that to have a plan forward, to have a roadmap to make change. And to be honest, I agree. I think Stu's right that I think it's the newcomers are probably going to be the easiest and the quickest to change. It's the challenge of the old guard and us long-term citizens that are really the problem. So, but I think a plan is important, and it shows that we're committed to make change.
Yeah, and the other thing this may be something that comes into our 2022 budget. The only thing was when Mike said that the WildSafe coordinator could be the one to do it, and sounds like we have a pretty dynamic WildSafe coordinator this year, which they change year to year, right? It's like, well, maybe this is something that could happen. Not taking a lot of staff time is what I'm hoping. But anyway, we'll see. Anybody else want to comment on this? Stuart?
Yeah, I'm not opposed to a plan. I just don't want to spend a lot of money on a really fancy plan. Can be just pretty simple stuff that most of us already understand.
Right. Well, and that's exactly Mike's point, right? Like the hazard and the management plan could be a simple thing, right? And what we're talking about now is just directing staff to look into it and see what our options are. Terry.
Yeah. Yes. Let's look into it. I think a plan and the more noise we make about it, the farther away the bears might, even though some people will resist it.
Yeah. Okay. The plan could be we all get out there with pots and pans and scare them away. Okay. Anybody else on this? I'm going to call the question. All in favor? Okay. Okay, so like a number of you, I participated in all 3 ideas fairs for the OCP. They were great ideas. There really some good ideas came forward, but still the turnout was disappointing. There's still an opportunity for everyone to participate in the survey, so please get it out to everyone you know, not just to post on Facebook, but like spam all your friends, because the surveys are still open until the 30th. It'd be great to get some more people involved. Then also there's the tabletop conversations that people could have, and there's a guide for that. You can download that, encourage people to work on that, and the story map where they can go in and click on things they want to see and opportunities they see. So we need to encourage everybody, you know, all of us as well as everybody we know, to talk to friends and family, because we need to have this as representative as we can of the community. And if the only people, if it's a limited number of people who contribute, well, I mean, the OCP is going to reflect that, and let's just hope it's the people that have the best ideas that come forward, and everybody else is willing to follow. But you hate to bank on that. Let's see. So the Midtown Transition Project had the final meeting before construction started, and we had a virtual groundbreaking, which was kind of fun. We acknowledged the excellent team that was involved. There was plenty of thanks for staff and their contributions, which was great. Let's see, I participated in the weekly IH vaccination update calls. The new acting chief medical officer, Sue Pollock, has taken the helm, and she's now been at the first meeting since those meetings started up again. They're just the same thing, like they're just trying to get everyone out to encourage vaccinations. They're getting the mobile vaccination mobile out. They've done over 5,000 doses with the mobile vaccine thing now, so that's great. But they need more. You know, we're doing well, but we need to do better. I participated in the electric fence workshop put on by Roslyn Rec and led by Andrew Bennett. It was really informative how to best secure gardens, chicken coops, and compost areas from all kinds of animals. And now talking to him, I feel really confident that our bylaw in its adopted form is a good one, that we didn't need to require electric wire for everyone, but that we do need to, you know, make it happen when there is an incident. So Dirk, you're a walking proof of that. I was invited to participate in a new enterprise that's geared towards using mentors to attract and assist women, youth, minorities, and other marginalized people into local government. The need to have local government actually reflect and be representative of the population has never been greater. This is it's a for-profit company. The mentors are free, but the people who sign up do it on a subscription basis. They're going to start it in Canada, spread it to the US, and hope to have good impact. I was interviewed by the Kootenay Boundary Family Divisions of Practice in conjunction with the LCCDTS's Health Committee about health service gaps and feasibility of changing how healthcare is delivered. And unfortunately, the idea of co-locating services locally could be stalling. I don't know if Chris and Janice, if you've heard that, because I know you were involved in those conversations too, but that was disappointing. I participated in a Zoom call that sponsored by Climate Caucus, and the speaker was Don Lidstone, who's the municipal lawyer. The topic was affordable housing, specifically in outdoor mountain communities. And it was interesting, but most of the strategies that he was talking about is stuff we're already doing in Roslyn, the carriage housing, using zoning, using infill, working with partners, BC Housing, CBT, Lower Columbia Affordable Housing. So, I don't know, I didn't pick up a lot of really great tips. He did talk about the Whistler, rent controlled stuff that they have, and using zoning to create permanent rental zones, which we haven't used, but we could. Anyway, it was interesting for sure, but I was hoping for some real gems, and I didn't actually come away with any. I continue to enjoy and recommend the course that I'm taking, Resilient Civic Leadership. The focus on compassion, civility, forgiveness, respectful dialogue has been excellent. And I have to say, when I talk to the other mayors and councillors on this course, there's 18 altogether, I think we have an exemplary council because we are civil and respectful with each other, basically at all times in our discussion. And we are not the norm compared to what I'm hearing of these other councillors. So, I thank all of you for that continued adherence to civility. I attended the AKBLG executive meeting on Friday and Saturday, just this last weekend. It was the first in-person meeting. It was kind of odd, but it was very productive. Radium was meant to be the site of our 2020 AGM, which we just did the resolutions. And now the balance of the meeting is going to be the first weekend of October, also in Radium. And the hope is that it will be in person. So mark your calendars. If the fourth wave of COVID hits, they'll pivot to being online. Otherwise, they won't be doing an online thing. They won't try and do a hybrid. And that's it for me. So, okay, guys, I think we are done. We have no in camera, so we can have a motion to adjourn. Whose hand goes up the fastest for this? Everybody. Okay. And thank you, staff. Appreciate it. Good to see everybody. Good night.
Thanks all. Bye-bye.
Bye.